Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Testing. Let me pull this down some. All right, here we go. Testing, testing. One, two, three. Uh, hey, Carrie. Hey, Miss T. Hey, Exorcist. And
Hello, Miss Dana.
hi. Let me share this out again. Um, I'm just setting up as we wait for the judge to come. This should be a really good space tonight.
He's been pretty active on social media.
Yeah.
He's been out there just saying it all, especially about the one with the hilarious eyelashes.
Oh, Jasmine Crockett. Yeah.
Yeah.
Her
He was on
ass.
No Newsmax talking about her.
Oh, he
But
was on there today?
well, I was watching something on social media with him on it from Newsmax. I'm not sure if it was. I'm sure it was today. But she's not from my district. I would not have. Voted for that woman. I don't know what district she's from, but no one that where I'm at would voted for that woman. I think she's around Houston or Austin, one of the cities close by. That woman is crazy.
Cause yeah, she's their new puppet now.
That's what I'm thinking. I think that's who they want more than anything is her versus AOC. I don't know. Oh, there's a judge.
Judge, can you hear me?
Yes, roger that.
Okay. So yeah, hopefully we won't have any technical issues tonight. Um and shout out to everybody in the room. Please repost and like, and hello to everybody on YouTube. Please like and share as well on YouTube, guys. Hi Barb, hi Hello. So okay, I put in the title Carmelo Anthony, facts versus fiction. There's not a lot of information from this ongoing investigation yet. I guess, well, what we gathered so far, he is still locked up with $1 million bail. And I know his lawyer is trying to decrease the bail. And so I don't know if he received a hearing. I know the lawyer said he's requesting a hearing this week. And today is only Tuesday, but this situation happened on the 2nd or the 3rd of April. And so now people are just speculating, was it self-defense? Was it not self-defense? And everybody have their own narrative or assumptions. And of course, Judge, you are the legal expert. And also put in the title hashtag Trump's tariffs. And on YouTube, it was China tariffs, so Trump today upped the tariffs to 110% on China. And then I also put in the comment section in YouTube, the title section in YouTube, Jasmine Crockett viral remarks, right? Saying black people tired of being on the cotton fields and let the immigrants pick the damn cotton because we don't want to do it. Just more nonsense from her. Hi, lovely. Hi,
Hey,
Peter. So, and thank you, Peter. Peter has been promoting the space all day, hopping in a whole bunch of spaces. So I really appreciate that. So, yeah. So go ahead, Judge. Where do you want to start at?
I'll just respond to questions.
Okay, cool. So who has the? I know Carrie. Okay, Carrie, Exodus, Miss T, and Peter. Um, Peter's gonna be up here for a while. I'm too afraid to make you a third co-host because I don't want the space to get janky. But technically you are like a co-host, Peter. So let me start with Carrie, Exodus, Miss T, and then Peter, then Lovely. Carrie?
Oh, I haven't even thought of a question yet
Oh,
to
okay.
ask. It's so quick.
Just mute. All right, so I'll come back to you, Carrie. Just mute up.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. You caught me off guard.
And Exorcist.
Oh, I just come to all y'all spaces. I really don't have anything to ask right now. I really don't know what happened with Carmelo Anthony, but I've been following the Jasmine Crockett thing pretty close, and it just seems like she's just become the new puppet of the Democrat Party.
Exactly. All right. I'll
I
go to.
love her pretext at being ghetto and hood rat. She's a PK, meaning preacher's kid, the daughter of Reverend and Mrs. Joe Crockett of St. Louis, Missouri. So she's a preacher's kid. She's got a connection with me. I didn't know it until recently. She went to Rhodes College over here, where I used to lecture every now and then. It's a private, religious based college, and it has a limited membership of a student body of about 2,000. It's a small place, and it's located in a very picturesque area right across from the biggest park in the city, right across from the zoo. And it's a fascinating place. So she's had an upbringing that is very, very far from the hood rat she tries to portray.
Right.
Interesting. And I think she really needs to stop trying to look like she's 20 something. And I believe she just had a birthday a couple of weeks ago. I think her birthday is something like March 29th, 1981. So that would make her 44 years old. She might try to act like it.
Hmm.
Did
Well,
you
and
see
she's a
the
Crump,
video?
she's a Benjamin Crump, right? And Lee Merritt alkalite. And so you could figure out where she's getting her histrionics from in regards to what she's up to and who's telling her what to do that, I would
Well,
imagine as well.
yeah. Yeah, you're right. Probably. Ben Crump is not a person that impresses me. I'd like to see his trial record if he has one. I don't think he does.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Let me go to Miss T.
Well, good afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Hey, Dana. Hey, Judge.
Hey.
hi there.
Hey, I've been hanging out with Peter all day long. We've been talking about this Carmelo Anthony case. And Dana and Judge, have you all had a chance to read the police report that was released?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, great,
It's interesting.
great, great,
It's
great,
interesting.
great.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
let me say this. There's some good things going for the defense and some of them that are bad. And one of the worst is him running his mouth off and talking to the police. He should have remembered what is on so many of the television and programs and motion pictures. You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used in evidence against you, etc. Now, we've seen a lot of ignorance when it came to the Fifth Amendment. Even Fannie Willis down in uh, Atlanta, Georgia, in Fulton County, came up with what I call the worst case of Fifth Amendment ignorance I've seen in a long, long time. Well, ever, really. Especially since it comes from an elected DA of one of the largest cities in the country. But it's a good idea to keep your mouth shut. They had a pretty good thing going where, with a decent defense, they might have put in play a felony murder thing where the homicide would be imputed to the people who started the underlying felony, which in this case would be robbery or theft from a person by use or threat of violence. And that would be the taking or attempt to take the property of another. So he had a good case going, and that would have, by law, imputed the felony, the murder, the homicide that occurred to one of the actors in the events that might have been construed as a robbery attempt. Now, that said, I don't want to be on the lecture circuit right now, so I'll hold off until things warm up a bit.
Okay, let me ask my question real quickly. So, since this happened last Wednesday, and I'm not sure if you're real familiar with Texas law.
Hello. Long time listener, first time caller. I just want to know your stance on do you think rap
Excuse
music
It's a
you,
troll. It's a
excuse you,
troll. It's a troll.
you didn't do you
uh,
think rap music
Judge, if you could
Ma'am,
tell
go ahead.
me,
You have the floor.
thank you. If you could tell me why he has not been arraigned yet, seeing that this happened last Wednesday, and why is he in an adult jail being 17?
Well, in Texas, you are triable as an adult at 17 with certain charges pending, certain types of charges pending. I mean, I've tried 16-year-olds charged with felonies and homicides, and they were tried as adults. I even had the dubious distinction of getting the youngest person in the world on a death row off, and his execution stayed 23 minutes before he was to be executed, and he was 15 years, 2 weeks at the time of his execution date. This was for something he was supposed to have done when he was in the seventh grade. Now, it varies. And one of the things that's ordinarily the case is the U.S. Supreme Court says that you can hold somebody for 48 hours on business days, with the weekend being a freebie. His problem right now, which I think is a definite wrong, is the atrocity of setting a $1 million bond on him. The Fifth Amendment says there shall be no unreasonable bail set. And a bail bond is simply what will reasonably be expected to have the defendant show up to resolve the charges against him. And that's all. But right now, we tend to use it as a matter of preemptive punishment before something has had a chance to gravitate through due process of law. It's not too cool. So I think what we have here is an atmosphere from the area involved where the district attorney is desirous of continuing his career in this pretty average, decent paying job as the elected chief prosecutor. So he's trying to, let's say, brown nose a bit by doing this. I think he should have conducted a bit more investigation before it went there. Now, if he's got a bond set, that means that something has been charged against him. And it is drawing a little bit ragged here that he has not been arraigned, if in fact he has not. I didn't really pay attention to whether he's been arraigned, so I can't speak knowledgeably
What
on that.
is the difference of him being arraigned? What does that mean
In
exactly?
other words, you just can't keep somebody in jail. If you charge them, you have to arraign them and advise them of what they're charged with and take their plea, which is typically not guilty. And if the defendant refuses to or cannot enter a plea, then it is presumed that he's entering a not guilty plea, and the judge should reflect that on the record. Now, what the Supreme Court has decided long time ago is that you can be held in for 48 hours worth of business days. In other words, Monday through Friday. The weekends are free. So it's kind of drawing to the point where we start getting into some due process problems if they don't arraign him on something and just hold him without formal charge.
Now, Judge, does this also have provisions for, implications for the speedy trial provision?
Actually, and in practice, no, it does
Okay.
not.
Okay. But
Because
once he,
this is going to drag on a while, because first off, he's going to have to be arraigned. He may have already been arraigned today and we just haven't heard about it.
Well,
But in any event, he's going to have the right to have a preliminary hearing. And subsequent to that, whether or not he has had probable cause to continue to hold the charges against him, he'll have the opportunity to have the case heard in front of a grand jury. And if they return an indictment, then a capias will issue and he will be required to appear in a criminal court for arraignment there on the felony charges, formal felony charges. He'll be entitled to report dates so that his lawyer can get up to speed, conduct an investigation, file motions, do discovery, negotiate with the state, find out what their case is about, who they're going to call as witnesses, any people that the state knows would be a likely witness or through the exercise of due diligence would reasonably be able to determine that and find the locations. And then eventually, when all of the motions are resolved and discovery is had, then the trial date will be set, which in the typical criminal court today is not likely to go when it is originally set, because something that's already set will probably proceed and bump it, and it'll either stay in that court or be transferred to another one. So it
question.
might be a good year and a half before this thing goes to trial.
Quick question, and I'm gonna go to Lovely. He has $1 million bail. Does that mean he was already arraigned, or
Not necessarily. A bail can be set after the arrest.
okay? So go ahead, Lovely.
Peace, Dana, peace, Judge, peace, Peter, and peace to the room. I just wanted to know, Judge, like, one, do you think it was self-defense based off the evidence or the details that were presented, whether it be in the media or anything you might know? And then also, I had mentioned something yesterday where I know in New York we have something called like a top charge. So, like, even if before you're found guilty, you'll get like a top charge of, let's say, murder, but if the prosecutor can't prove it, I guess like you're acquitted or you're allowed to get like a lesser type of sentence or charge. And I wanted to know, if do you think that will happen in this
Well,
case?
here, there are always plea bargains, and what we really have is more a manslaughter or a second degree murder case, not a first degree one. If the defendant hadn't shot his mouth off and I were conducting the defense, I would say there would be a good opportunity for a felony murder defense, which means this: robbery is defined as theft committed by the taking of the property of another by the use of force or threatened use of force. All right? If somebody tries to pull off a robbery, then you may resist that felony with the use of deadly force. All right? If a homicide occurs as a result of the felony put in motion by the perpetrators, then the homicide is assigned to them, not the person that responded to the felony. In other words, somebody works in a liquor store and two people walk in to hold up the liquor store and pull out guns, or they go in trying to hold the place up and the guy thinks they've got guns. He pulls out a gun, there's a shootout. The guy that works there misses his target and his bullet kills a bystander on the sidewalk. Well, he isn't supposed to be charged with the murder. It's the people that came in there to pull off the robbery. That's a felony murder case. Now, if he hadn't talked about self defense, the storyline seems to be that he had some things that two people were trying to take from him forcibly. That becomes a robbery, which allows him to resist. And if somebody dies as a result of his resistance, the homicide doesn't go to him, it goes to the people who tried to commit the robbery. Now, from what is out there on the facts, he says it's self defense, but he's got a problem. He's an athlete. I know it was 2-on-1, but there is an escalation of force here that is inappropriate. In other words, if somebody is laying hands on you, hitting you, wrestling you, you may lay hands back, you may wrestle, you may punch, you may do all of that kind of stuff, but you don't really tread on firm ground if you pull out a deadly weapon and start responding to an attack that is not using a deadly weapon unless there is a disparate force situation. In other words, you got a 65-year-old woman and she's being attacked by somebody 22 years old who's 6'4" and muscular. That is a disparate force situation, which would entitle her to escalate the force she uses. If it's just 1-on-1, 2-on-1, and it's some young guys, they can punch it out all they want to. But if one of them pulls a knife and stabs the other, then you're going to have an escalation situation, and you will have homicide charges if a death occurs. The other thing, though, is if it was a robbery, in other words, a theft that was being committed from the person of, well, of a victim by use of force or violence or threat of violence, that becomes a robbery, which means all bets are off. You can resist a robbery with deadly force in most states.
Um,
But he didn't say that. He said it was self-defense, and that's going to run into the problem of escalation to a different level.
which means
Yeah, Judge, there's been people in other spaces who are bringing up the weight differential between Carmelo and Austin being roughly around 100 pounds. And they were saying they were intimating or thinking that that could potentially lead or give rise to him being able to use deadly force, in this case, the knife. I
I
didn't
doubt it.
agree. Yeah, I didn't agree with that either. So
Look
it's
at
going to be
Bruce Lee.
interesting.
I mean, he's
Right.
been dead a long
Exactly.
time, but look at
Yep.
Bruce Lee. He's usually 100 pounds lighter than most of the folk he ran up against in the movies or in real life. I know somebody that used to train with Bruce Lee's primary coach and instructor.
Mhm.
Yeah, Judge, I've actually trained with Dan Inosanto, who trained Bruce Lee in Kali, the Filipino martial art. And if you look at some of these Filipinos, you know, their stature based upon their genetics is very small, but they're some of the most deadly people on the face of the planet
Yeah,
because of their efficiency with knives and blades and how dangerous those blades are.
yeah, gotcha. I've been taking martial arts for 60 years. I got the points well straight up and down.
um,
By the way, Mr. Choi, kind of the godfather of LA's Koreatown, is the person I was talking about that was the last individual who was his trainer and coach. Did you ever run into a Cliff Stewart,
No, but my Sifu probably knows him because he's
late of
heavily
Los
in the
Angeles?
community.
Look him up.
all right.
That
Yep.
was my brother.
I want to
All
go
right.
to
Awesome, Judge.
Jay Calder, and then Daniel, and then I'm gonna swing back to Miss T and Carrie. Jay.
Yes, hi. How you doing, guys? I just have a simple question. How is it that a kid comes on to school with a knife? Like, I just don't understand that part of the whole thing. Like, the kid's at a school, he has a knife. How is he not guilty of murder right off the bat?
Well, the law in most places outside of the East Coast is even if you're violating the law and have a weapon that you aren't supposed to have, if you are entitled to use it, that does not destroy your defense to the use of the knife in the first place. Now, as I said, though, we are going to self defense, so that comes into a problem of what happens when you escalate nonviolent force to lethal force. Uh, I don't get it. 2-on-1, 3-on-1, 1-on-1. In my day, it was a fist fight. That was it. You were a stone straight up punk if you pulled a knife out on somebody when it was a fist fight situation. So, and most of the people today are not like the last gentleman, myself, who were talking about martial arts that they know of. Most of these folk have never been in a fist fight, even when they get 18, 19 years old, 16, 17, and they don't know what they're doing. And they're swinging wildly, and they're not likely to really physically hurt somebody badly. So pulling out a knife to me without some justification is just a punk move. That's just like lack of man training. So I'm not particularly sympathetic to the express cause here. But I could see, had there not been too much running off at the mouth, a good situation where a good defense lawyer that was skilled and practiced in what he did or does would be able to claim that we had a felony murder situation too with a robbery. So he was responding to a robbery, not a self-defense situation.
All right. Anything else, Jay?
No, I'm good. I was just curious about the knife thing being on school premises. It just seems kind of weird. It seems like why would a kid have a knife while at school at a meet or whatever they were doing?
Well, Jay, he's allowed to carry a knife according to Texas laws, provided even on school grounds, as long as it's 5.5 inches or less.
Oh,
So
okay.
he was allowed to legally do that.
Yeah, it just seems odd. I mean, I'm on the East Coast and like that's just like pretty odd. But
Yeah, we
okay,
Well,
have
it's
4 inches in
different.
Jersey. 4 inches is the max we could have legally to carry in Jersey. So I'm with you.
Well,
yeah.
it's a different way of life. I was playing football at Dorsey High School in LA, and I was in the 11th grade, and there was a fight after a basketball game. And our quarterback for the football team was out there, and he thought somebody punched him, but the guy stabbed him. He wasn't in the fight, the guy ran past him. And it turned out he'd been stabbed. He panicked, and they couldn't get his panic reaction under control. They couldn't operate on him, so he bled out a few hours later. Tragic. If he'd been able to control himself, they could have surgically intervened and he would have lived, but he didn't make it.
So give me
So,
1 second. I see Lloyd and I see you, Mark. As soon as I clear off 2 spots, I'll bring you guys up. Um, I want to go to
Yeah,
Daniel.
Judge.
I'm gonna.
To Judge's point, the knives are extremely dangerous. Like I would rather face a firearm than somebody who has a knife. The amount of damage that a knife could do is, and it's nasty work, and the damage and the blood everywhere. It's really quite something.
Yeah, wait, hold on for a
yeah,
second, Peter. Hold on. Because I want to make sure I don't lose my train of thought here. Um, I'm gonna go to Daniel Immortal. Now, if you're done, if you're already spoken, you're done. Just drop down so I could bring someone up. Daniel Immortal Adonis. And then I know Carrie and Miss T. Go ahead, Carrie, because Carrie, you said you didn't have none at the time. So go ahead, because I need to drop at least 2 people down to bring.
Well, okay. Okay. Well, being from Texas and raising two boys, and I said the same thing as the other gentleman. Like, what the heck is that kid doing with a knife at school? And Peter said, well, you're allowed. Well, I never knew that. But are you talking about a pocket knife? Because I allowed my kids to take to school a pocket knife. So, but I never told my kids to use it on someone. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with parenting and how these kids are raised. I mean, and I know times have changed since I've been around, okay, because I'm older than a lot of these people on here. But, I didn't think anything of it to give my child a Swiss pocket knife to take to school, and to use it on someone. I never would ever have done that if that was the case. But I just don't. I don't know. I just think I feel bad for this kid because he just, ruined a lot of what's going on. But I would not want to have this kid be in
Hold
jail the
on for a
rest of
second.
his life.
Hold on. Peter, stop. Don't bring anybody up because it was two people ahead of Ricky and Mikkel. So Ricky and Mikkel,
Okay, I didn't bring any up. I sent out some messages or invites. That's why
yeah.
it might have been.
So
I'll cancel the invites. Okay.
yeah, don't.
I'll drop.
Yeah, so drop Ricky and Mikkel
All
down for now because is there are three people waiting to come in, and I kind of have them in queue order. Um,
got you. I'll drop him and we'll bring them back. We'll bring you guys back up. We're just dropping to make space so they can make their
yeah,
submission,
but
and then we'll bring people back
so
up.
also, who is this? I have Daniel, I have Immortal, I have Adonis, and I know Carrie is talking, and I'm gonna swing to Miss T and Exodus, and then I'll drop you guys down, and then I'll bring up the others, and then I'll swing back to you, Lovely. So go ahead, finish up, Carrie.
But anyway, I'm not saying just because the kid had a knife that he was guilty, as someone mentioned yesterday, that I didn't mean it. I was just asking questions. Um, when someone has a knife at school, I'm not thinking it's a pocket knife, okay? That's legal. I'm thinking of a big knife, okay? Now, I understand what Peter said. It has to be some. Are you talking about a pocket knife, Peter?
I'm talking about it. I put the Texas knife law in the nest, so you could check it out. We could read it if we want to, but basically, it's anything with 5.5 inches. I think it goes from handle to blade extended, so it would be a folder or a fixed blade, a fixed
A pocket knife.
position knife. It could, well, you
Just
could
say
call it a
it, a
pocket.
pocket knife.
Well, it depends on
Yeah.
what you call a pocket knife or what somebody else does. There could be
Because
knives that
I
are.
wouldn't send my kid to school with a huge knife.
No,
Listen,
we're
have
I
you
not
ever
would
seen
talking
the?
send my
about.
kid. I've sent my kids to school with pocket knives, but I
Carrie,
didn't tell them to
have you
use
ever
them.
seen a Benchmade knife or a Spyderco? I mean, these things are vicious. So it could be small. You don't need a lot to do damage with a blade. You could take an X-Acto knife and secrete it between your hand and punch somebody with it and hit them in the jugular, and it's lights out for them within minutes. So I don't know what this distinction you're trying to draw is between a
No, I'm
pocket
just
knife.
telling you, I don't raise my kid. I'm just telling you that in Texas, I didn't think it was legal to take a frickin' knife to school. And then
Well,
you corrected
I
me
put the law
and
up there.
said it has to be so many inches. So what
Maybe
I'm
I can help
saying,
everybody out.
can I finish, please?
Go ahead. I was just going to help you out with what you were talking about. You're talking about a pen knife, a Swiss Army knife, Cub Scout, Boy Scout folding knife.
Yeah. Uh, uh,
That's there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, when you're talking about 5.5 inches with the blade extended, you're talking about a small knife, a pen knife. What
Yeah,
the?
that's what I was talking about
Yeah.
yesterday. I didn't know because my kids went to school. I never thought it was legal taking a huge knife. And then I started thinking, well, heck, I gave my kids pocket knives, or their father did. I didn't. Their father did. But I didn't think anything of it to cause harm with someone, you know? And
But
I just
I see what you're saying, Carrie. But the thing is, if why carry a pocket knife? Is it if somebody robs them or somebody tried to attack them that they can protect themselves?
exactly, I would use it, but I never taught my kids to do that. I mean, maybe their father did, but I didn't.
So
I
then why
didn't
allow them to bring it?
I I didn't think anything of it,
Oh,
to be
okay.
honest. I didn't think someone was going to use it to kill someone. You
I
Well,
see?
don't think
it's like,
his intent was not to kill him. It was just to
But to use it.
yeah, but to use
well,
it, it was
hold
he
on,
didn't
hold
mean to
on, hold
kill him.
on,
I don't.
hold on. It's Texas. And there are all sorts of utilities for a small pocket knife to cut your nails, clean your nails, to cut string, to open envelopes, to cut price tags off, all kinds of things. Pocket knives are very handy for. I carry one everywhere now. I don't fly with it. I put it in my onboard check in luggage if I'm going to have any. But I very seldom go anywhere without a small pocket knife and a sharp one because it's got a lot of utility to it.
Yeah.
So, but what's happening, see, is somewhere in here, this kid was scared, and somewhere in here, we got away from kids learning how to stand up to bullying and having a non lethal fist fight where we let the parents, the teachers, and the police handle all of this stuff. And the kid is in high school, he's never been in a fight, and he's frightened enough to stab somebody supposedly in the chest. And I don't know what size knife he had. Now, actually, if I were going to go do something, or some of the thugs I used to know in school, what they'd do is they'd sneak into the cafeteria, go back in the kitchen when nobody was looking, and take one of the cooking knives back there and put it in under upper sleeve or down the side of the pants, and that's got a 4, 5, 6 inch blade. That would be a lot more efficient at killing somebody. So I don't know whether we've got a knife that is no longer than 5.5 inches from one end to the other when it's fully deployed or open. So I don't know.
I
Well, all I'm saying is the guy was a lot. Okay, let's just say the white guy was a lot bigger. I was told than the other gentleman, but I I just I this is crazy to me, to be honestly, but I just feel bad for both parties, like I said yesterday. But when someone said it was legal to carry a knife on the premises, I'm thinking a big knife, you know? I'm not thinking of a pocket knife.
All right, so let me move to another speaker. Daniel, Den Immortal, Adonis, Lloyd. Mark, I had you down. You dropped down. Now I see you requesting. What's going on? All right, go ahead, Daniel.
How you
Daniel,
doing,
is it
man?
okay if I bring up some more people as well, or you want me to leave the queue clear?
I have, well, right now, what I have in queue is Mark, Ricky, Ray, Duncan, Rancash, and they're waiting to come up. It's like four people waiting.
Okay.
So, and then I have to get through who's on up
I'm
here.
gonna
And
I'm gonna
then,
rotate Carrie off and anybody else who spoke, and we'll bring them back up just so we can get the two more
okay,
speakers up. Okay.
all right. Go ahead, Daniel.
How you doing, Dan? It's been a minute.
Hi.
Doing all right, Judge? It's
All right, sir.
been about 4 years, Peter. I ain't seen you in a minute. No, I just man, we're just in space together. So I had a question for the judge. And this is my only question, and I'll leave things into this. Hey, so the fact that he's 17, does that play a role in how they're gonna look at this, or could it play a role?
It
Because,
might, but
because
as I said, I had the dubious distinction of at one time getting the youngest person in the whole world on a death row off. I got a stay of execution 23 minutes before they were going to kill him. He was 15 years, 2 weeks at the time, and he was in there for homicide that supposedly occurred when he was in the seventh grade. That was in Arkansas. If you get that, yeah, age may have something to do with it, but I tried several defendants where I was the defense lawyer. Fortunately, everybody got acquitted, where the defendant was 15 or 16 at the time of the homicide, and they were asking for the death penalty. So it's not unusual. And as a matter of fact, in research for this case that I was just talking about, it turns out the youngest person executed in the 20th century in the United States was a 10-year-old girl who stole 14 cents worth of merchandise from a five and dime department store, 1934. She was tried as an adult on Monday and hung on Wednesday. Now, that was in Arkansas. And I did a 12,842 page brief on this thing that was hard bound. It was a book. It was like a big, thick, unabridged Webster's dictionary. But people, well, let's put it this way: the states are varied and sundry in who they try as an adult.
Gotcha.
Yeah, in Texas, 17, is considered an adult.
Yeah, but that's what I was thinking, right? So, and I'm sorry, be brief, but we were just talking about this, and it's like, um, do we expect them to have the same type of wherewithal as an adult? But I think Judge cleared it up with that last one, though. But just real quick, I would like to have you on the podcast, Dana, if you're available. Shout out to Lowski Distracted Podcast. Follow us on Rumble. Thank you.
By the
Yeah.
way, one last remark on that. Teenagers are the dumbest things you can ever find in life. And between 16, 15, and 25, it is just absolutely amazing how stupid they can be when the consequences have to be really dealt with. And it's very difficult defending a juvenile because they think they know everything and they know absolutely everything about absolutely nothing. And when they get through doing what they think is a brilliant self defense situation in what they say, not necessarily do, you are stuck with a mess that it is hell to undo.
Yeah.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
I'm gonna go to Immortal, and then I'm gonna swing back to Lovely, and
But
then
I can get you on the
Adonis.
podcast, right, Dana?
Yeah, send me a message. Just
Yes, ma'am. We'll do. Y'all have a
message
nice
me.
night, man. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you,
See you
All
later,
right.
appreciate
Steve.
it. So just message me, and I'll
Yep,
Take
we'll do.
care.
respond back.
Yep, peace.
Immortal. Then I'm gonna swing back to Lovely. Then Adonis, Lloyd, Mark, Ricky,
You
Ray.
forgot me,
Duncan.
Dana. And mine's is
Oh,
quick.
go ahead, Miss T, and go ahead, Miss T, and then Lovely, and then no, Miss T, Immortal, then Lovely. Go ahead.
Okay, and then I'll drop. Judge, the aggressor was 225 pounds and 6 foot 1 inch tall, and he was a football player. The uh, the person he was aggressive towards or attacked was 5'9", 130. So, being that there's a 95-pound weight difference and a 4.5 inch height difference, my understanding is you have to meet the same aggression that came towards you in the state of Texas for defense. So, at 130 pounds, how do you weigh what is deemed equal with a 95-pound weight difference when you're being attacked?
I did it all the time when I was in school. I was 5 feet 10, and I played football. And when I was in high school, I was 155, and I was running up against 250-pound linemen who was 6 feet 4. And I knocked one guy out. We had a little altercation off the field. He was 6'3" and 255, and I knocked him out cold. Of course, I'd been taking boxing and martial arts for a long time. I was outweighed by 100 pounds. So, yeah, there's no justification for pulling a knife. And if that's the case, you just excuse the language. You take your ass whipping. That's what it is. And you learn better than to get in that situation. You come back and do something later. You don't knife somebody because you're overmatched that day.
So that will be
It's
how
not
the
done.
court will look at it when it's presented.
Probably that is probably going to be what they're going to do. Now, uh also, it's 2-on-1. As I said, if he hadn't run his mouth to the police talking about it was self-defense, he might have been able to get away with saying, I was not dealing with self defense. I was resisting a robbery attempt. They were trying to take my stuff. And that becomes a felony murder. And if he had stabbed this guy resisting a robbery, that's a totally different picture.
Mhm. All right. Immortal.
But that's not the way it's presented right now. So we'll have to see. Like I said, when you get 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year olds, they know absolutely everything about absolutely nothing. And it's very hard defending them because they talked their way into some messes that really they should not be in, because they should have kept their mouths shut.
There's two lawyers, Judge, actually out in California. They're considered like the pot or marijuana lawyers, and their big thing is give your name, give your address, and then shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and you know where you saw one of the worst violations of that? What Fannie Willis did down in Fulton County, Georgia, when Judge McAfee told her she didn't have to take the stand, and she said she chose to testify. You saw it, stuck on stupid.
So, all right, Immortal, and then Lovely, and then Adonis, Lloyd, Mark. Go ahead, Immortal.
Okay, so greetings, Dana, and greetings to the Honorable Judge Joe Brown.
Okay, are you on a
And greetings.
speaker? Are you on a speaker?
Well, let me take it. I got an
Yeah, a
earphone. Let
lot
me
of
Yeah,
take
turn
it
your
feedback
out.
on your mic.
stuff off. Yes, please.
Okay, so greetings
Better.
to Dana and the Honorable Judge Joe Brown and everybody in the room. So I agree with what the judge was saying, because I was mentioning that earlier. You do have a right to defend yourself with deadly force when you're being robbed. And I've been looking at the laws, and I trying to see if this is a strong arm or aggravated robbery. But yeah, that from the reports that I was looking at, it looks like they were physically attacking him and also removing his property from him and things of that nature. So that's a robbery, and like the judge says, you have a remedy, affirmative defense in that. The next thing is the testimony. And although you're eligible in Texas to be tried as an adult under certain circumstances, I don't think that takes away the responsibility that the police have with dealing with a 17-year-old and testimony from a 17-year-old. There were protocols and different things that should have been followed, and I don't know if they were followed or not. But it just seems to me, and I'll look into it some more, that anything he said can be stricken from the record based on, that protocol not being followed. So, in the last thing, the only thing that I disagree with the honorable judge on is, like you, Judge, when I was 130 pounds, I had to do physical combat with people who were over 200 pounds, but I had been trained how to fight. You see what I'm saying? I had been trained how to fight. So I don't think that it's a reasonable expectation in today's world that you're going to have someone who's 130 pounds with the instruction and the knowledge to be able to defend himself against someone who's almost twice his size, let alone two people. So I get it, coming from growing up where I grew up at, that, you train your sons and even your daughters to defend themselves. But, this day and time, they're playing games. They're playing video games. They're not going to, learn martial arts or boxing or things of that nature the way that it was in the past. And I think that along those lines, if we were, and I hate when people refuse to acknowledge this. I think that you can look around the country, and even in Texas, where you have a black person who is an aggressor, who is uh, who's outmatches someone in size, and that person has taken, and they'll use that. They'll use it all day. They'll say, "Oh well, he's this big, he's 10 foot tall, and he's this and that." So, yeah, that's the only part that I disagree with. Like, I personally, just from the society that we live in today, I don't expect a 17-year-old to have the skills to fight off, someone 100 pounds larger than them, and let alone two people during a robbery. Even though I generally get what you're saying, you know. Uh, so
Well,
that's it. Yeah, that he should be able to get off, not with self-defense, but with the fact that he was being robbed. Um, the knife thing, he hasn't broke it. If the knife was illegal to possess at that time, I believe that they would have charged him with the crime. You can't have, they're charging him with murder, and with that comes, and He committed it with a weapon. If that's the case, then why not charge him with the crime of possessing that weapon illegally? Well, the reason not is because he didn't possess that weapon illegally.
Well,
Yeah.
point is, he may have possessed it illegally, but when it's a homicide, he didn't kill him with the bare hands. What happens is the possession of the weapon merges into the offense.
All right.
Judge, we lost the
So,
judge.
what?
1 second, Peter. I need to go to Lovely.
Okay, so I have a picture that I added into the comments. I was gonna post it in the jumbotron, and I guess Peter or anybody could tell me if that picture is like authentic of Austin Metcalf calling, I'm assuming, black people monkeys. They said like hours before the track meet and was like, and had guns on his lap saying, "I dare one of these monkeys to pull up to the track meet." Is that real?
I doubt it. There's so many trolls, but it could be, right? But I mean, as far as that happening right before, if it is, though, they will subpoena the records. They'll get
Right.
it right from Instagram, and they'll be able to prove the veracity of that. But
Because
I would doubt.
I'm
Yeah.
not justifying, of course, I don't want nobody dying, anything like that. But I'm like, if I were a teenager in this day and age, and let's say I lived in a place like Texas and I seen something like that, I don't know how I would react if I would react in a calmer fashion. I don't know. Maybe I might be scared and do some crazy shit too. Excuse me, Dana. I might do something crazy as well. So I just wanted to know the authenticity of that.
Yeah, it was something else fake that the police had to come out and say because somebody was pretending to be a sheriff or one of the police officers, and that was a fake account as well. So it's a lot of quote unquote trolls because it's first of all it's too soon for all of the information to be presented, and I guess it'll roll out when it rolls out. So yeah, but it is a lot of misinformation being spewed
We saw
around.
that too with a toxicology report that was faked as well, and they corrected that in the news
Yeah.
media as well. So we're seeing a lot of different stuff. These people like to engagement farm, and they get their rocks and their jollies from doing this stuff. So
Okay, one thing I'd like to point out. I was in junior high school in the 1950s. All right, high school in the early 60s. Ninth grade, we came to school one morning. There was a guy stripped naked. He was hung by his neck from the flagpole right in front of the school. He just graduated the year before and gone on to high school. Somebody had cut his belly open and his guts were hanging down to the sidewalk about 6 feet below him. We just wondered who he had messed with. When I was in the 11th grade, I saw the quarterback of the team get stabbed, and I was a witness to it, and he eventually died. I saw somebody get stabbed, and another
What kind of high
somebody
school you
killed with
went
a.
to with the belly cut open on the damn school
That
premises?
was junior high school,
Were
John Muir
you in the?
Junior.
Did you go to a ghetto school or
That
something?
was John Muir Junior High School on Vermont and 67th,
Where's that at,
62nd
honey? Is that in
Street
the
in Los
hood?
Angeles, California.
So it was in the
Dorsey
hood.
I was over on Farmdale near La Brea in Los Angeles. And let's see, I saw somebody burnt up when I was in the 8th grade.
Was this done by
Uh,
another student?
yeah, all of this. They wouldn't let us have night football games in what we call the Southern League and the LA
So
system.
what?
That was
Why is it another student burn another student? Are you serious?
serious. I mean, I've seen all these things happen. We had violence. I mean,
For what?
uh, just they had a lot of gang activity in LA. Slauson's
In the
Vikings, Dale
50s?
Vikings.
yeah,
What's
Judge,
that?
what year was this? When were you in grammar school and then high school?
Well, in the 50s and high school, 1960s. So, yeah.
I gotta get
I
to Lloyd. Let me get to
graduated
another
and was at
speaker.
UCLA by 1965. So, yeah, I saw a lot of killings and all of this. It happened quite often.
All right, I'm gonna get to
It
Lloyd.
stopped after the uprising in 1965 in August in LA, the so called riot, but
All
it
right.
stopped completely. But, you know, it was not anything that was new. And we had teachers male teachers, lots of male teachers who had been veterans, and that was a good gig for them. They got out and they went to college on a GI Bill. So we had vets from Korea, World War II, and we had a few of the older ones who were from World War One. So we were looking at these guys that had limps. Obviously, something was wrong with an arm or two because they couldn't use them fully, and they were combat vets, and we didn't expect them to take anything from us except other than the time to knock us out if we got too far out of line. Those were the teachers. We had corporal punishment. I got a whole lot of swats with broken ping pong paddles and razor straps,
All
and
right.
everybody was a different kind of thing. We didn't have PTSD, and there was discipline. Nowadays, like I'm saying, nobody has a fight anymore. We used to have fights on the playground all the time.
All right.
All the time.
I want to get to the next speaker. Lloyd, go ahead.
Oh, hey, Dana.
Hey.
Awesome space. Uh, Shout out to everybody. Judge Joe Brown, it is such an honor to actually talk to Judge Joe Brown. Very cool.
Thank you.
Um, so here's my thought on this, are questions I have. So Texas is a stand your ground state. That means that Karmelo did not have a duty to retreat as long as the uh, within a stand your ground state, you can use up to and including lethal force to put down a threat to uh, uh, imminent bodily harm or serious bodily harm. Someone is stealing your property. Someone, you feel there's a threat. All of those things. Okay, so if Texas is a stand your ground and Carmelo meets the bar for every single one of the elements of stand your ground, why was he charged?
Because
That is my biggest.
he escalated it from non-lethal force to lethal violence. That's what he did. In other words, somebody's pounding you on you with his fist. Before you can start using deadly force, you have to be put at risk of suffering death or serious bodily injury. So that would be the standard that the defendant would have to show if he relied upon self defense and escalation of force. In other words, you aren't just going to get bruised and battered. You have to be at risk of suffering serious bodily injury, and there are definitions that a jury would be given as to what that amounts to, or death. Then you might escalate it to defend yourself against that. But if all you're facing is pain and a bruising, that's not going to necessarily justify you moving to the next level, stand your ground or otherwise, and start using lethal force to resist the attack. You have to be in fear of suffering death or serious bodily injury to move it to the next step, and that has to be reasonable, as either a jury is going to assess what they would have thought about it or what they think the defendant thought about it. Now, if there had been this felony in progress, a robbery, then yeah, we would be in a different kind of picture. But he's the one that apparently told the police it was self defense. Now, that's why you should keep your mouth shut when you are confronted. You have a right to remain silent. Do so.
I get that part. However, what I would then ask you is, when you're talking about reasonable, is it reasonable by in the heat of that moment? If he in his mind believed that his life was in danger, and it doesn't say they have to kill you. It says serious bodily harm. So if a 250-pound person is about to hit a 130-pound person, and who is 5 inches shorter, and that's not going to be pretty, then that could be construed as serious bodily harm. So, so I'm wondering what standard does the prosecutor who is actually doing the charging, what standard does he have to live up to? Does he have to does he have to take into account all of the circumstances? These two kids, apparently there had been an altercation a week before. The kid was Carmelo was told to by a coach to go sit under the tent. These two kids get up and decide it's time for him to go, and when he didn't go, one of them or both of them, not sure, got aggressive with him, and people keep saying that he goaded them. Well, can a goad be considered a warning if I tell you, don't put your hands on me, see what happens? Or don't put or don't hit me, see what happens? Well, in those kinds of situations, you're not going to be at your most articulate. You're going to say there's adrenaline going, there's fear going on, all these things. So if the situation is that he was at risk for what the law says, serious bodily harm, not escalation to, but he was at risk for serious bodily harm. That's why they wrote the stand your ground statute, was because self-defense is so difficult to prove. Now you don't have to retreat. Now you can stand up to the threat, and you can put it down up to and including lethal force if it's proportional. So my question is, what does the prosecutor have to take any of that into account when he's making a charging decision?
No. Hagen Dake, what he calls the community standard, and what is a reasonable thing. It's what a reasonable man would do. What is a reasonable man? A reasonable man under American law is what collectively the 12 folk on a jury would do. It's up to them and what they think is reasonable under the circumstances, under the direction of the judge, who gives them the law and the standards they are to apply to the situation to reach that determination. They aren't just cut loose. Do you think so and so and so and so? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the charge that you're going to get is as follows. Now, what is so and so and so and so? What is a reasonable belief? And the judge will define it for them. And they will apply what the judge has given them orally as an instruction, and it will also be in writing in the file jacket or what they take back in the jury room when they deliberate. So the prosecution might show leniency in what he offers to resolve the case. I'm looking at realistically a manslaughter or a second degree murder case. What's second degree murder? It is the commission of a homicide in the heat of passion, provoked by something sufficient to cause the defendant to act in an irrational fashion. Manslaughter is generally a homicide committed in the heat of passion as a result of a provocation sufficient to cause an ordinary and reasonable person to act irrationally. That's not necessarily the case in Texas, but something like that will be charged to the jury. So in other words, if
So,
anybody is likely to have gone off and acted irrationally, then it's manslaughter. If there was something peculiar about the circumstances that made the defendant act irrationally, but not necessarily somebody else, then it becomes second degree murder. Now, that's what they're likely to get out of this whole thing, unless they're going to try and show that because of some animus that developed earlier from a confrontation, he, meaning the defendant, was looking for an excuse to do something bad to one of his previous assailants.
Judge, I was going to bring that up earlier, right? Why it was peculiar to me to see the first degree murder charge, and I only based that upon information that we don't have as of yet, where the prior fight between Austin and Karmelo and then Karmelo intimating through text messages or verbally to friends that he was going to seek revenge or get his get back, so to speak, as the young
Well,
kids say nowadays.
that is a whole different order of business. That shows that what wound up happening was pretext. In other
So
words,
motive.
it, well, it's called intent.
Mhm.
Motive is Hollywood. I've never heard anybody say motive in a trial in 50 years. It's always intent.
Intent. Okay.
And you judge intent by the actions that are taken. Now, if you have that in the record, then I can see why the prosecutor is doing what he's doing, because that does make it first degree murder. In other words, if assuming that was proved, that would mean he had formed the intent to do something to the person, and then he plotted and planned on how to carry it out.
All
So,
right.
Judge, quick question: you'd have
Wait 1 second, Peter.
premeditation.
Wait
Okay.
1 second, because
Sure.
I
Okay.
want to finish up
Peter,
with Lloyd.
Peter, can I finish? Okay. So I just have one more point to make, Judge. So if the defense attorney is able to prove this is a stand your ground case, and
This
Carmelo,
is not a stand your ground case. There was nowhere to run.
okay,
There's no requirement to run. Stand your ground is only an articulation of what the law has been for 42 out of the 50 states for the last, the length of the existence of this republic. It was something that some people in the New England states came up with about you had a duty to run or flee. So nobody, I mean, that 50 years ago in a murder case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there is no obligation for the defendant to run or to flee from the scene. He may stand his ground. That's been law in most, well, 42 of the 50 states since forever. You know,
okay, you're Judge Joe Brown. I'm not going to argue with you at this point. I will ask you this question. So let's assume that Carmelo beats this. It goes to trial. Carmelo wins. There was still the commission of a crime because assault is a crime. Why hasn't Hunter Metcalf been charged with either negligent homicide or manslaughter because his brother Austin died during the commission of an
well,
assault?
let's put it this way. There's a thing called prosecutorial discretion in the United States and in Great Britain, and the prosecutor has absolute authority to determine who is prosecuted or who is not, unless a grand jury independently intervenes, which it might do. I don't know. So let's see what happens. That's a point, and it's to be considered. Now, when I say these things about standing your ground, that's not what we have is a salient factor here. It isn't a matter of me turning around and run, though he had the option of doing that, but he didn't have to. What is being alleged based on the potentially hypothetical, potentially real uh, situation that I just got exposed to, if the defendant had indicated sometime before this happened that he intended to do something to one or both of these individuals who are nominally his assailants, and he had formulated a plan to contrive an excuse to do this, then that may be the reason that they bring in the first degree murder thing, which is an intentional homicide where the person does it with deliberation. He plots it, he plans it, he figures how to set it up.
All right. So stay there, Lloyd. Stay there, Lloyd. Peter, you said you wanted to say something because I want to go to Mark, Ricky, Ray, Duncan, and I have other people on the list as well, but it looked like some
Yeah,
of them dropped down.
just real quick, I wanted to ask the judge a question because I remember from taking some classes at college regarding criminal law. You have, is it 5 elements of the crime that need to be proven? The actus reus, the mens rea, and the attendant circumstances, and then 2 others, or is it just those 3?
It depends on what the crime is.
Gotcha. Thanks.
All right, go ahead, Mark.
So let me first say this. Uh, uh, this young man was dealing with a group of guys. We keep speaking as if this is just one guy he was dealing with. Now we're very clear. Had he not defended himself, then definitely the other twin would have helped assault him, right? So I think he should have carved his heart out his chest. First of all, you know what I mean, to send a message to them. I mean, we talking about Texas. We talking about Texas, and we know the history of Texas. The mere fact that he had the knife on him, uh, we know why he had the knife on him. Because you dealing with some little clan members. Make no mistake about it. Let's stop playing this game like we don't know what happens in Texas. You know, and so I mean to say that the young man should have known the law. What about the fact that his brain is not even fully developed? Because that's the way. If it had been the other way around, the first thing would have been brought up was the fact that his brain is not fully developed. Now it's one side to be a judge or a lawyer, but see when you come from the street side of this, we know how this thing is played.
You do?
Oh, without a doubt. You
I
know what I
knew
mean?
two
I've been
17. I
arrested
knew
enough
two
times.
guys that volunteered to join the army. They died at 17 years old in the Nam, 1964.
Cool.
17.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew several people that died at 17. In
Mhm.
addition, in the
Mhm.
streets, and what I'm telling you about the law, we learned when in the fifth grade. I wasn't in college. I wasn't in high school. I wasn't in law school. I was in the fifth grade. So yeah, why don't they know it? They
So
watch enough television and they watch enough motion
even if you're in the military, you don't know the law. As a matter of fact,
well,
they want you.
we
They, they
used
they
to.
want you dummies about
We
the law
used to.
when you go to the
We used
military.
to.
I'm saying that may have been back in the
Okay,
day.
back
This
in
is
the
today,
day.
right? So the military don't want no old folks like us that's talking back and that know something. They need some young dumb kids.
Well,
That's
yeah,
that's why they go to high
you
schools.
get dumb fools. They make better cannon fodder. They charge the machine gun
Exactly.
emplacement with a sense of impunity that somebody a little bit older wouldn't have.
Okay, so you said it. You said it in your submission that young people are some of the dumbest. You know, that's why the military wants them because no, what's the difference in Barack Obama or Bill Clinton and Larry Hoover? It is no difference. They both are gang leaders. Uh,
Clinton and
uh, uh,
Obama weren't gang leaders, but
what do you
they
mean?
weren't.
What no, what they called?
They weren't.
What they called? Chief? They called chief what? What do they call?
They're not gang leaders.
Well, what's the
There's a
difference?
big difference.
I'm saying both as
Technically, the
presidents are no
president,
different than Larry
technically
Hoover as a gang leader send young people to kill, right?
technically the president is the war leader. He's commander in chief, and that's the reality of the
That
world.
recruits children to kill on
Well,
behalf of
yeah,
him, right?
but a lot of
Yeah.
okay, take Al Gore, who was running for president. He was the vice president. He volunteered for the NOM. He served as a private, even though his dad was a U.S. senator at the time. I know him because my law office used to represent him. He was a client.
I got you, but what I'm trying to
So,
say
I mean,
is,
it depends
what
on what the
what
person's doing. He volunteered at 18
what
years
is the
old.
president's job? He's the chief. The chief. What
He
now?
is the
What's that position?
commander in chief of the armed
Commander in
services,
chief,
and we
right?
need it.
What is Larry Hoover's? What is Larry
Mark,
Hoover's
where are you
position?
going with this?
Yeah, that's the point.
Man, let me finish talking to him.
No, yeah, but
No, where are you
what?
going though?
See, and let me say
So
one other thing. If
so.
he had carved
Mhm.
his heart out, there are a lot of people that are long-term occupants of penitentiaries for doing something like that.
You right. You right. But if I'm dealing with a guy that's 95 pounds, uh, um, heavier than me, and he got other friends around him, I'm definitely gonna try to kill him.
Why?
Make no mistake
Why?
about it. Because I know they're gonna try to kill me. But
Well,
let's
but you
reverse
see,
it.
here's the problem.
That's
According to what I'm hearing right now, the young man who is charged with murder had been spreading it on the net that he was going to get them. So
I
is
mean,
what
however,
happens.
that'll be questioned in
Well, of
court,
course,
right?
but
But
if
I'm
he
asking this
said
question.
it, what happens?
I'm asking
See,
this
look,
question
if
because
he said it,
uh
when the prosecutor,
I guess you know.
if they can prove he said it and bring recordings or witnesses, when the state puts on its prosecution
no, we
and they're
understand that
proving
that's
intent, they'll
premeditated.
bring that up. Now, that's why you need to keep your mouth shut in life. We've always known that. People have known that for thousands of years. Keep your mouth shut.
I agree. I agree. I agree. It's premeditated if he. I know they're gonna try to come that angle, but I'm speaking on the fact of these white folks acting as if it wasn't in other way around, that they would have they wouldn't be saying, well, he put his hands on them down in Texas. We talking Texas here now. Had this been the other way around, the first thing they would have said was he assaulted him, and they would be in full support of him, just like we're in full support of this kid, and prepared to come down there and make some noise about it. Oh, all right. So that I don't want them to think that this gonna be some. They talk to the Jesse Jacksons and Al Sharptons. We don't want to hear nothing they got to say. We don't want to hear a damn thing that they have to say. And so if we have to come down there to stand with him in court, we're willing to do that from across the country. And we don't want to hear from no national black folks telling us nothing from the 50s.
Well, maybe what the problem is there's nobody that's a national black folk who's got sense enough to be able to speak to the issues without trying to get some hustle going. You have
No, you saying that right. You saying that right.
now, what?
But
Let
we
me just
know
say this.
how this
Let
stuff
me
happens.
just say this. It's a good idea, that if you're going to be in, well, I don't know what the hell they do now. These kids are so punked out, sissified that they don't know how to take a ass whipping or let alone give one.
But see, that's not the case right here,
That
Judge.
is the
We talking
case
this
here.
guy. This guy had 4 or 5 other people, including his twin,
That's all right. He
right?
had a twin. I've faced down 4, 5, 6 people.
Well, that was a
I
long
know,
time
but
ago.
I put one
Okay, that
of
was a
them.
whole lot of
I
long
put
time
one of
ago.
them on.
And
I weighed about, well, maybe 10, 15 pounds heavier than the defendant, but I knocked one 240-pound somebody out cold.
well,
He
Judge, I'm
was sitting there
51 years
kicking on
old.
the ground. He was out. And you
Judge,
see,
I'm
but the
51
point
years
is,
old.
look, why has he at 17 not taken it upon himself to go take a martial arts class? I don't get it. We all tried to pick up on boxing and martial arts. And this was back in the 50s and 60s. So this kid is growing up, and the teachers would even joke about it. Boy, you better learn the manly art of self defense so you don't get run home from school anymore. They tell students that. I mean,
Well, see, he did something different. He got into sports instead of
yeah,
martial
well, if
arts.
you're sports,
Okay.
you are in good physical condition. That means the martial arts are easier.
Well, see, Judge, I'm 51 years old, and there's 5 or 6 guys around me. I'm gonna start cutting them all. He should have cut more than
Well,
him.
see,
I'd have stabbed more than
the
him.
problem is if you pull out the
Because you know,
knife.
you know for a fact, Judge, it wasn't just a
Yeah,
one-on-one
I know it
situation.
was 2-on-1,
It,
but the point is,
no, it was more than that. It was the rest
well,
of them
yeah,
standing
I
them
don't
down.
know the
Well,
full
wait,
set of facts.
how do you know it was more than that? Because none of that came out and no evidence.
Mark knows it all. He's plugged in with the police down there. He knows it.
Well, it may be, but see,
See,
I don't.
Because
I'm gonna
even in the
always speak
police
in
report that
support.
came out, if that was a real police report, they was just saying we have witnesses. They didn't go in details to say what the witnesses said. They just said we have coaches as witnesses and students and the list of names. So the investigation to question those witnesses has not
I got
taken
you.
place yet. So we don't know if it was 2-on-1 or more than that. That's all speculation.
Or the
Well,
forensic
I'd have
data
lost my mind
from the
and said it
cell
was 10
phones.
of them. You know what I'm saying? I start seeing multiple ones of them. Them guys so big, I had to just start
Let
cutting
me say
everything
this.
around
Let
me.
me say this, and cut to the real chase. If you think it's a matter you got to do what you got to do, then
And you got to deal with
you deal
that
with it
jury,
and you
right?
do the time that you get.
There you go.
Now,
But
on the
that's
other
for me. That's
hand,
for me as a
on the
that's for
other
me as a
hand,
51-year-old man.
if that's what you chose to do, then don't cry about it. You made that choice.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, where I was going with this was that's me as a 51-year-old man. Okay. I'd rather be carried. I mean, I'd rather be tried than carried
Yeah, I
to the
get
grave.
it. Better be
Okay, I
tried
got a
by
whole different
12 and
mindset.
carried
But
by
we talking
6.
about,
That's the old saying.
but I'm saying we talking about a 17-year-old child, a 17-year-old child. Now stop acting like this is a grown man. This is a 17-year-old child dealing with some overgrown mass murderers. Because I look at them as mass murderers with all them guns and they got that stuff that they got sitting in their lap and all that. These guys probably was hitmen, all kind of. We don't know what we dealing with,
I
right?
doubt they were hit
And so,
men. They wouldn't have
man,
handled
look,
it, and that
Mark,
boy
hey,
would not be breathing today if they
I'm
were.
gonna say whatever needs to be said. I'm just like them white daddies when they with their white sons.
Mark, when
The
you
way they
when
stand
you
up for their
when you
white
said that
sons,
you were in
that's how I
prison
stand up
from
for the black
19 to
for black
26, did
kids.
you put a lot of knife work in while you were away?
Say it again. Say it
When you
again.
said that you've told many times you've been arrested 200 times, you were in prison from 19 to 25, did you put a lot of knife work in while you were away?
Yes, I did. I went to jail with 4 months and stayed 5 years because of that. Okay. All right. So now let's get back to this point about this being a kid.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because I'm 50 years old now. Now all you white men in here, you know damn well if this was your child and he killed somebody, the first thing your ass would have said was, "Hey, the guy put his hands on him." Well, goddamn it, that's how I feel about this boy here. He put his hands on him and he should have carved his damn heart out.
No, no,
I
no,
ain't finna
no,
get in
no,
here and be
no,
trying to
no, no,
cater
no,
to
no.
cater
We
to
don't
y'all.
go there.
I'm
We
not
don't
catering
go
to no
there.
no. We
We
men. We
don't
we
go
men.
there.
We believe in
We
balance.
Judge,
don't
this
go
Mark
there.
talks about this all the time in every space.
Yeah. Now,
People need to
look,
hear him.
look, look, look. Let me put it out to you. I had a case that they tried to the bench. They didn't want a jury trying this. One party to this case, the defendant, was a senior chief petty officer, United States Navy. He was black. The victim was a gunny sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps, who was white. The white gunny sergeant died because the black senior chief petty officer stabbed him. There was a situation where the black senior chief petty officer had started dating the gunny's ex-wife. The gunny's father was in the courtroom. I pronounced the guy not guilty after we got through with the trial. The victim's father got up, started approaching the defendant. I gave my deputies the high sign, but what he did is he stuck his hand out. He said, "Son, let me shake your hand. I told that stupid son of a bitch somebody's gonna kill him if he didn't stop that shit. You did what you had to do."
All right, so I want to move on. You can stay up there for a second, Mark, because I see I am going to swing back to Lori, but I want to get to some new speakers here. And I do see you, the Black and B boy. I am going to bring y'all up. And I see ATM, so just hold on for a sec when we clear some spaces. And how the hell you go to jail for 4 months and end up doing 5, Mark? But I never mind.
Because I was stabbing and fighting
I
and
see.
all kind of shit.
All
Yes,
right,
I
all
was,
right. I want to. Oh,
and I still
all
do
right.
it
Dana,
again.
is Lamar next?
No, no, no. Lamar's not next. It's Ray, Duncan, then Lamar, then Brooklyn, no taxation, B Boy, El Hotep, and the Black. Or no, El Hotep, B Boy, Black. Anyway, go ahead, Ray.
All right, thank you, Dana, Peter, Judge Joe. Cuz as always, it is an honor to speak to you. So I just want to get your perspective on this because I want to give you a little pushback on something I heard you say earlier about second degree murder, and this is just my thinking again. So again, I want to give you some pushback on even calling it second degree murder or even manslaughter, because from the details in the report that I read, there's a strong argument for self defense, or at the very least, a lack of intent to kill, which, from what I understand, is critical for both second degree and manslaughter charges. So I want you to just listen and follow me on this. So, Carmelo, he was under a tent, presumably minding his own business. Multiple witnesses state that Austin told him to move, then put hands on him, and then grabbed him. Carmelo gave verbal warnings before anything escalated. He said, "Touch me and see what happens." And he also said something to the notion of, "Punch me and you're going to see what's happened." To me, that's not someone chasing a fight. That's someone is trying to deter one. There's no indication that Carmelo pulled his knife before being physically touched. He also made spontaneous statements like, I was protecting myself when he got arrested. And he put his hands on me, which aligns with someone that's reacting out of a perceived immediate danger. That's not someone, in my opinion, with malice or a deprived heart, which is needed for second degree. And certainly not recklessness without regard for human life, which would then justify manslaughter. I feel like, yes, you can argue there was poor judgment or even excessive force. Sure. But when you're being physically confronted, the legal threshold, from what I understand, for self defense doesn't require you to wait until you're seriously hurt. Unless something more shows that he bought the weapon intending to use it, I just don't see how this can be even a second degree case. Can I get your thoughts on that, please, Judge?
Well, you just made the second degree case. If the prosecution could establish exactly what you just claimed, they've got a damn good case. You just made the case for the prosecution. Now, you may not think it, but when the charges got read to the jury, what you just said would match the charges for second degree or manslaughter. And by the way, I'm not talking vacantly on this. Personally, as a defense lawyer, I tried successfully 42 first degree murder cases where the death penalty was demanded. None of my former clients are on death row. I must have tried maybe 30 some other first degree murder cases or second degree murder cases where no death penalty was demanded. And at the time I was sitting on the criminal bench, we only had 10 criminal court judges, but Memphis handled the fifth largest number of state crimes in the whole of the United States. It was Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Dallas, and then Memphis. And the city right behind Memphis in number six, they had 40 some divisions of criminal court. We only had 10. So I tried 1/10 of the fifth largest number of homicides in the United States, and I got elected to two 8-year terms as criminal court judge. I had a lot of first degree, second degree, and manslaughter cases. All I'm doing is conveying the result of my observations over a 30 some year period where I was defense counsel. I ran the public defender's office as the chief PD. I'd been a prosecutor and I'd been a private defense lawyer. Then I was elected to 16 years worth of term as a criminal court judge in the fifth largest criminal jurisdiction in the United States. So all I'm doing is giving you a little bit of 411 over what I saw over the last 55 years. Now, that's all. I'm just making an observation. And what you just got through telling me would have been something that would make a good prosecutor start foaming at the mouth in anticipation. Well, they're not foaming, but probably salivating in anticipation of a victory.
Mm. Real quick,
Definitely a throw up his
one
leg.
second, real quick, Peter, one second.
Yeah.
One
Uh,
second. The ATM man requested to come up, but there's no spaces. So when we get a space, just invite him because I did write him down in that order. So just invite him
Got
up
it.
when we get a next
I'm, I'm
space.
ATM man.
dropping. I'm
Gotcha.
dropping down, Dana. Judge, again, thank you for my question and giving me clarity on that.
hey, I'm just giving you the observation.
All right. Duncan.
Yes. Good
Duncan
evening,
Lamar,
everybody.
Brooklyn, and no taxation.
Yeah, good evening to everybody in the room. It's a pleasure speaking with you, Honorable Judge O'Brien again. Um, you didn't enlighten me to a lot of stuff. I did not know that he was being robbed. Um, I never heard that. I did not know nothing about that. I wish they would make that more public in the news, or maybe I just might have missed it. Um, I remember speaking last time. I was speaking to Peter. Peter said that if an old woman is being attacked by a young, strong male, she has no right to lethal force. I don't know if Peter remembers that,
I
but
do.
he said, Yep, he definitely disagrees with you, Judge. And so
Well,
I'm
let's
saying,
put it this way. Like I said, I've probably tried as a defense lawyer 70, 75 homicide, murder, first degree murder cases. All right. As a trial judge, I presided over a lot more than that. So let me just say this: the rule when you come to what they call disparate use of force can be justified if there is a stark discrepancy in physical stature. You get
that's
the
what I was
old
agreeing with. I agree with you. That's
you
what I was
get the
saying.
old woman. I'm going to if you are taking that point, I'm agreeing with you. If you take that point and you get
Mm-hmm.
a physically fit young man who's strong and you get a meek old lady, she can
Mm-hmm.
escalate the force in order to
To lethal
match.
force.
But if you've got two men, even if there is a difference in size but not age, then that becomes harder and harder to justify because you start saying, does this guy know something that could have broken your bones? Does he know something that could have broken your jaw? Could have caused you to suffer debilitating internal injuries from which there was a risk that you might die? Then you can
And
escalate.
I get what you're saying, but I got more questions. I know Dana
Go
gonna
ahead,
want to get
go
to.
ahead, ask the question. No, that ain't
Okay,
what you posed to me. Go ahead.
yeah, I was just saying that Peter would disagree with you, like he said he disagreed with that, and it
Yeah,
depends
but
on
the
who on the.
case is, how many homicide cases is he defended against or
No. That,
prosecuted? Right.
you're not getting my point. You're not geting my point, Judge. Without and for the little bit of time I got, because I
All
know
I'm
everybody
saying
else got a lot.
is look, let me
Like
put something here.
it,
Look.
it gonna make it seem like I'm long winded,
No,
Judge,
no,
because y'all won't let me finish.
I'm not treating you as long-winded. I get your point, but this is for him.
Mm-hmm.
You walk in and you start telling the doctor what your symptoms are. Okay, you know what you feel. That's one thing. The doctor has been treating a lot of patients. He went through being an intern and a resident. And he saw a whole lot of people. You are talking to a friend who has also talked to a doctor, and you don't have a medical degree, and you're telling the friend the doctor doesn't know what he's talking about. What's the difference between what you are saying and what the not you actually, but let's say
Yeah,
hypothetically?
because I'm agreeing with you, Judge. I'm just saying it would be people like Peter that's on the jury that'll say, well, Peter will make up the people in the jury that make the final decision. That's
Yeah,
all
I
I was
know,
saying.
but they don't get to run free. They have to follow the orders and instructions of the court. That's why they have voir dire. So you can determine whether the prospective juror is likely to follow the law.
Now, another thing, this is interesting. This is interesting. Now, another thing, I did not know this either because I didn't hear that in the media. So it was more than one person, from what I heard on the stage tonight, that was attacking Carmelo Anthony, right?
We don't know that.
That's what
That's all
We don't
somebody
have enough
speculation.
information at this point. Yes.
yeah, we aren't privy to the facts. All we have is hearsay.
Okay, because I thought that's what I
That's
heard
what
tonight.
Mark said.
I mean,
Okay, well,
the
Mark
two
said it
brothers
was
were
more than
next to
two.
him.
Mark said
There's
it
a
was
lot of
more,
Okay,
but
erroneous
that's not.
information
But
floating
that's not
around.
a fact. That's not a fact. It's all speculation. So it's a lot of speculation, and no facts are coming in right about now. So let me go.
If
now
you
is it
go,
a fact? Is it a fact? Is it a
I mean,
fact
the
that
brother said he was there
hold
next to them.
on, hold on. Like, is it a fact that he was getting his property taken? That's something else I didn't know.
Well,
So
we
we
you
don't
Yeah,
don't
may be
know
but
know
right.
that
see,
the
the
either.
point
understanding of
is,
that.
hold on a second. The point is, and I'm making I'm teaching.
Hmm.
You have the Fifth Amendment. That is one of the most important rights you have. Be silent, shut your mouth, and stop trying to talk your way out of shit.
Right.
Because nine times out of
Can you
10,
question the
you will
underage
talk your
child
way
without their
He
into
parent?
it.
didn't question the underage. The underage was just running his mouth. But hold on for a second, Duncan. I gotta go to another speaker.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I knew I wasn't gonna be able to finish.
But you
But go ahead,
finished
Joe.
what?
Now I had one more
What was
question,
the
but
okay?
that's
What's
all
the
right. I'll
other
let y'all.
question, Duncan?
My last question is: say if they made a plea, what type of plea? And I'm asking the judge this: what type of plea that they could probably offer him where he would still be able to get youthful offender? That would be my final
Well,
question.
what happens is if the prosecutor is generous, he'd probably offer him a manslaughter bargain.
Could he get youthful offender on a manslaughter? Is
I
that
don't know.
more than three?
I don't know. Even he'd probably come off better as an adult if he got that. Like for example, in Tennessee, manslaughter carries 3 to 6 for a first offender. It's based on sentencing
Mm-hmm.
guidelines, and if you are a first offender with no prior record under Tennessee law, if you get convicted of a manslaughter conviction, which is a Class C felony, you are entitled to automatic probation, all things else being equal.
Yeah, he could get youthful offender with them 3 years too.
Not
But
not
okay,
necessarily youthful, even if you're 50 years old, if you are a first offender in Tennessee, for example, and you get
no, no,
convicted.
I got what you were saying. I was
Yeah.
saying, but with them 3 years, he would qualify for youthful
Now,
offender.
youthful offender is a non existent situation in most states. That's a few that have that. The federal system cuts a lot of slack for youthful offenders, but it comes up with that. But a lot of states don't have the thing called a youthful offender.
All right, I want to get to
And
Lamar.
Duncan, I'm not an attorney, and I have no problem being corrected when I'm wrong and admitting it. So I defer to the judge
Yeah, no,
with his
I was
experience.
just
Okay, we
saying
get
that
it. Fine.
that is
No, all
different
right, we
people
gotta
with
move on. We
different
gotta move
degree,
on. We gotta
different
move on. We
opinions.
gotta move on. I need to
All
go
right,
If
to
all
they
right.
have a
Lamar. I need to
youthful
go to
offender
Lamar.
statute,
I need to go to Lamar.
if they let me just say this, if they have a youthful offender statute in Texas at 17, he'd probably be entitled to the benefits if there are any. If they have
Well, he's
one.
being charged as an adult.
Okay, I'm just
So
saying
can
this
we
is
stop talking
sentencing.
about youth
This
shit?
is
He's being
sentencing.
charged as an adult for capital murder.
No, no, listen. Even if he's an adult, a youthful offender, when they do have it, extends up to say 25 years old. So he's tried as an adult
Not
when it
capital
comes.
first degree, my mistake. All right, I
So
want to I need
all
to
I'm
get to other
saying is
speakers. Let
when
me
it comes
judge.
to
Let me get to other speakers.
sentencing, listen, if it comes to sentencing and he's found guilty of something like manslaughter, the question is if that's the case, would he be entitled to say some consideration as a youthful offender? Depending upon the state, yes, he might,
All right.
even though he was tried as an adult.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me get to Lamar, then Brooklyn, and no taxation, and then I have other people on the list as well. So, and I'm about to start dropping people as well. So go ahead, Lamar.
Thanks, Dana. Judge Joe Brown, Peter, appreciate the space. I'll be really quick. Judge, appreciate you basically giving it straight, no chaser. My question is kind of twofold. If you could put your prosecution and defense hat on, based purely off of what we know, what gives you pause on either side of this case?
Well, on the defense side, he ran his mouth off and he stripped himself of this thing about resisting a robbery. On the prosecution side of the case, I would say that I have probably set the stage badly by trying to go for $1 million bond on him. Now, let's see
That's
where
it.
it lies.
All right. Real quick.
Now, one other thing. Here is from what I'm hearing, and I'm sort of coming in cold on this because this to me is just work. This is what I did for work for years. So it's boring to me and it's tedious, and I'm not getting paid for it. Okay. So some of what I am hearing is the first I've been exposed to such assertions as I'm getting tonight. So, okay, I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, okay, there is a good case for a good defense lawyer, but my problem is that so few people who hold themselves out as defense lawyers really have the experience to make that claim. They don't. So I'm looking at the typical lawyer who is not the most articulate person, who is not the most gifted with gab, that requires a talent like a stand-up comedian to really deal with a jury. I'm not thinking that I necessarily have the sharpest bulb in the room, which is not the case always. I'm thinking of which kind of investigative facilities and resources will be brought to bear with this. I'm thinking about what somebody may have said, woofing to somebody who says, hey, they jumped me. I'm going to get the SOB. I'm going to kick his ass. You just wait. I'm going to do it to him. That may be selling wolf tickets. But they're said, so all of this can be brought in if it in fact occurred and if it could be improved, if it could be proved. So I'm looking at a case that's up in the air. It is a typical case. It happens all the time in the United States, and I'd bet good money that there are a couple of hundred cases that have already occurred in April and March that are just like this in the United States, where we have so many people here.
Right.
So this is not
Gotcha.
unusual.
Just one last question, and if you don't mind, Dana, it would it be fair? And I'm not. I don't want to put words in your mouth. It sounds like you're kind of saying advantage prosecution in this instance.
Yeah, right now it is, but I can see some comeback where somebody can mitigate this so we don't get first degree, we get second or voluntary manslaughter.
Right.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Unless we have further data that points to premeditation, correct, Judge?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There is things that are coming out that I'm just getting privy to right now as we speak that would indicate premeditation. In other words, running your big mouth off to make yourself feel better and telling your friends and people that will listen that you're going to do something about this. You're going to get retaliatory satisfaction about doing something to them.
All right.
That does not bode well. Rule one, if you're going to do something to somebody, shut your mouth and do it.
All right, I want to get to Brooklyn, no taxation. I'm going to swing back to Lloyd, and then B-Boy, El Hotep, the Black, and the ATM man. Brooklyn.
Hey, peace to the space. It's been a
I'm
minute.
sorry, are you on a speaker?
I'm
Are
not.
you on Bluetooth?
Yeah.
Can get off the Bluetooth?
You're getting a lot of feedback. It
All
sounds
right.
crazy. Yeah.
Got you. One second. Is that any better?
Yeah, much better.
All right. All right. Hey, it's been a minute, man. Peace to the space. Peace to y'all. On that last note, as the judge said, made a great point that it's going to take a great defense lawyer. And to that point, everybody to go donate to that Give, Send, Go. Hopefully the young brother gets all the resources and all the funds that he needs to defend himself. And I hope everybody takes note of the attacks that have been coming for that Give, Send, Go campaign from the same people who donated money to Kyle Rittenhouse, same people who donated money to Daniel Penny and everybody else, to the point where the founders of Give, Send, Go have had to have spaces defending their decision to allow the campaign to stay up on the platform. And every time we see this, it's just the same old story. It's the same old reminder of how much these people hate us. They don't care about the facts of the case. They just want this to be a lynching, and they're mad that it's not a lynching yet.
May I ask you a question? Why do you call Rittenhouse? Why do you put Rittenhouse in that category?
Just as an example, whether you think he should have been found not guilty or not, whether you think he should have been acquitted or not,
I don't think he should have been charged.
That's fine. But just from the simple facts of the case, you could have.
Simple facts of the case, he didn't do anything wrong. It was a mob situation. There's
Wait,
a
no, Judge, he's talking to the fact of the
To be clear,
GoFundMe.
Yeah,
Because he
but
wasn't
I'm just saying.
complaining about Kyle Rittenhouse. Wait,
I
one
got
second, Judge.
that. I got
So
that,
you
but
well,
I'm
so we
just
don't need
saying.
a summation of Kyle Rittenhouse case.
No,
But
Nobody
I'm
cares about
not.
his
But
case.
hold
We're
on,
talking
hold
about the
on.
GoFundMe.
That's not the
but,
point. The point is
but
that
Judge,
No, that
check it
is
out
the
though.
point he's making. Brooklyn is
no,
making.
forget the GoFundMe. That's
But
enough.
that's why he came up here to speak. That's
Yeah,
what he
Because I
was
but
don't even
speaking to.
care. I don't care about Kyle Rittenhouse. He killed two white people. I don't care what. I don't care whether he was
Yeah,
found
nobody
guilty or
doesn't
not.
care about his case. It's just
well,
that it's just that people that disagree with what Kyle Rittenhouse did, it doesn't matter. He still had a GoFundMe. So why are people people
so
because you don't
okay.
agree with somebody, you wanna block them for executing their rights. It is a right for people to donate to a GoFundMe, no matter
Yeah,
what they
but
did or
Dana,
So
but
what you
Dana
I'm
disagree
not
Rittenhouse's
with.
GoFundMe got
I'm
shut down.
asking the question because I'm
Not
not
GoFundMe,
quite
but
get. Hold
fundraiser.
on, I'm not quite getting your point. You are interested in setting up a GoFundMe for the current.
No. Listen, the Carmelo Anthony, they started a GoFundMe to raise money for his legal fees, the same like they did with Daniel Penny and Kyle Rittenhouse. GoFundMe shut it down. So now they went to another company that allows people to fundraise, and people are trying to force that company to shut it down, and they're refusing to do that. So what he said
Which I
is
believe.
what Brooklyn was comparing is with if it's a Daniel Penny or a Kyle Rittenhouse, GoFundMe didn't even shut them down, but now they're trying to shut
No,
down
Dana, they
Carmelo
did. They
Anthony.
shut
And
down
Dana,
both of
just
them,
just to
and they
add
had
to
to
Well,
that
set
well,
up
real
a
quick,
whatever
separate
the
fund.
fuck it
that
Well, wait
was,
the
a minute.
but
platform.
he's
Oh,
doing a comparing contrast of a white
Hold on.
person
What are
fundraising
you
than a
oh, oh,
black
asking?
person.
What are you asking? What are you asking?
just to add to what Dana said, it was the same. The platform that they shifted to, called Give Send Go, which considers itself a Christian platform. I believe the same thing happened with those other instances. GoFundMe shut it down. Give Send Go allowed the platform to stay up. And I'm making the point, I don't know if you've seen it or not, Judge, but people have been attacking Give, Send, Go for allowing this to stay up. They've forgotten about the presumption of innocence until guilt is proven. They've forgotten about everybody's right to a defense. They've thrown all of that out the window, and they're attacking this platform for even allowing the young brother to collect money and resources and to have it donated for his defense.
It's America. I mean, shit happens. So they either raise the money or they don't, or they talk them out of,
No, they have. They've
no.
far exceeded his
So
goal. I
you
think
don't
it's
okay,
around
Brooklyn, you don't have a question. You
almost
just wanted to make a
200,000.
statement. You just wanted to make that statement of that compare and contrast of his fundraiser compared to the other people. Do you have a question?
Now, I just wanted to throw that out there. I'll leave it there for now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, you
I need
wanted to make a remark. I took it as you had a
no.
question.
I
You
need to
didn't
go
have
to
a
no
question.
taxation.
Hey Dana, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, Judge. How you doing?
All right.
This is Gene in New York. I ain't heard from you a long time because you've been socializing and being the belle of the ball down in Washington D.C. I heard everything. I heard all about it. Next time you come back, I hope we get better weather and
All
we
right.
can really go outside then.
It was cold then.
Yes, man. I don't know if this subject came up about it, but I wanted to talk about his Miranda rights. I didn't see, and I didn't read all 7 pages. I didn't see where this kid was read his rights, and I don't know if he was. And the other thing I wanted to ask to tap on to the back of that, Judge, is when that boy said, "It's not alleged I did it." Wouldn't that be the time, if he hadn't been read his rights, to have been read his rights? And I'm going to stay back and listen. Thanks, Dana.
Well, the rule is if somebody interjects and volunteers, you don't necessarily have to stop them. And the point is, he's asserting defense. And when you're trying to assert a defense, you're not responding to a question. The Miranda rights are directed toward police conducting an interrogation. Somebody who walks in and says, I want to talk. Okay, read them the rights. You don't necessarily have to, but it's a good thing to Mirandize them. If somebody just starts running off at the mouth before he's even asked a question, that is gratuitous, and the person kind of does it to himself. Yeah, he's 17, but in Texas, apparently, for certain crimes, a 17-year-old can be tried as an adult. And, you know,
Well, here's the thing, because his rights were read. It's just that whether they read the rights after he made that comment or not, but his comment is in the police report and is on a police body cam, which they indicated in the police report. So if they, in the police report, it said when they saw him and they went to arrest him and they put the handcuffs and told him to sit down, and he was like, and he called on radio to another officer. We have the alleged suspect. And then the boy said, it's not alleged, I did it. So
Yeah, he
now,
made spontaneous utterances a couple of
right.
times
And
in addition to
it's
that.
in the police report. It's on the body cam, which he said his body cam was on the whole time. So, but the rights were eventually read.
Yeah,
So, but everything is in a report. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Let me just add this.
well,
Let me add.
spontaneous utterance, you're on your own if you do that. Like I said, they have to interrogate you for your rights to kick in. If you run your mouth, they don't have to advise you of your rights and stop you.
Well,
You did it.
here's what I wanted to say, just as this is my personal opinion. Um, I kind of know that area where that happened at. I don't know the school district or anything like that, but that area is out there in Arlington, Georgia. You know what that's about, and it's a sectioned off area just on the fringes of Arlington, which means those people move further out, and they don't want us out there. And that is plain and simple. They do not want us out there, and that's where he was for whatever school activity was going on. But you could tell this boy was green because he done ran his mouth, and so if anybody who has a heart and understands children, especially children these days, because these children have been fed violence all of their lives. See, we weren't fed that, but they see it, they live it, they have it, they eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because that's what society gives them. And if you don't have heart enough to see that about both those children and whatever kind of complications they had, then you part of the problem.
Mhm.
And we got to have more solutions. Thanks, Dana.
Well, let's say this. Just because you killed somebody doesn't mean you're a bad person. Some of the people I know that are of the best character have killed people, and some killed a lot of them. I had occasion to talk with Professor Roscoe Brown, late of the New York University, a professor emeritus, and his official tally was about 23 people he had killed. He was a fighter pilot with the 332nd Airmen, Tuskegee Airmen, the Red Tails, flew a P 51 Mustang. And when they got through correlating the German Luftwaffe records, that's what they were assigning him, with sometimes multiple people in a crew he killed off at 30,000 feet, 4 hours into Germany at 70 below zero at altitude. But he was a fine scholar and a gentleman. And some of the most vicious thugs I've ever encountered in my life were 16, 17-year olds who would think nothing of taking somebody's life. So it all depends.
I want to swing back to Lloyd, and then I'm gonna go to B Boy, El Hotep, the Black ATM creditor. It's four people requesting, but all y'all four look like y'all trolls, and I don't got time right now. So go ahead, Lloyd.
Thanks, Dana. One of the things that I think I would ask the judge about is, are you aware that this kid lives in Frisco, or Carmelo lives in Frisco? So his parents have um, some sort of means. Apparently, if you live in Frisco, you have to. Okay, he's a 3.7 grade point average. He's an athlete in both football and track. He has early admissions to college. My question is, why are we talking about this child as though his experience is that of a stereotypical urban thug? There's nothing thug about this kid at all, except for the mugshot.
I wasn't talking
That's
about he
all.
was a thug. I also made the remark that seems to have been disregarded. I said, sometimes you do what you got to do. I said that on the front end. And if you do, then you pay the consequences. Now, I'm not saying he's a thug. I'm just saying that I think perhaps the use of a knife was overreacting, unless you can construe it as a robbery. I had no idea at first that he had shot his mouth off and say, "Hey, I'm not the suspect. I did it." You know, what time is that? Maybe he's being straight up. I'll take my punishment. I did what I think I had to do.
And and what happened would lend credence to he was not trying to hurt anybody. He believed in the American justice system. I had to defend
No,
myself.
you
That
stab somebody in the chest, you're trying to hurt them.
in the heat of
No,
the
it ain't heat of the
moment.
moment. See,
Okay, okay,
look,
okay.
what you're giving me is something fairly recent that comes into the criminal justice thing. This 30 years ago, it didn't exist. Now it does, because people start saying, but I was emotional. What's that got to do with anything? Why'd you do it? I was emotional. That doesn't cut it. In other words, you are
But he's
expected to
not claiming he
control.
was
No, see,
emotional.
that is this girlish thing. It's like
But he's not.
you
I can't.
effeminize the republic, and you think everybody is supposed to act like some caricature of a young girl in high school where she wants to cry and she's emotional and she wants to shout. The law doesn't work that way. You control your emotions. Now, when your emotions are out of control, that's why I said it becomes second degree, because it's a homicide committed in the heat of passion, engendered by a provocation sufficient to cause the defendant to act in an irrational fashion. If it's voluntary manslaughter, it is a homicide committed in the heat of passion sufficient to cause an ordinary and reasonable person to act in an irrational fashion. So it embraces it, but it does not excuse your act. It just may modify the severity. But again, the fact that somebody was emotional doesn't count. And also because I know people, in fact, one lawyer now dead, he dropped dead of a heart attack, a friend of mine in Memphis. I helped mentor him. He's joined the service, lied about his age, did 3 tours in the NAM starting when he was 16 years old. Then he became a lawyer when he got back, and went to college. So it's not that 16-year-olds don't have sense. Uh, I looked at a birthday card I got my father years and years ago, and he was born in 1910. And the life expectancy of a male white, and he was black, so he had a shorter one, when he was born wasn't but 27 years old in the United States of America. When my mother was born in 1917, the age had extended 2 years to 29 years old. That was your life expectancy. So at 17, you were expected to know something. And now people do, but they aren't challenged to do stuff, and they're encouraged to be helpless, to be dependent, and feel entitled. See, all of this stuff should have been thought. And then see what the prosecution would come back on when he takes the stand is on cross examination. He'd start asking, have you been to the movies yet? Seen John Wick? You get an idea of what happens when you stab somebody? Or did you see this movie? And he can run down a list. Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. So you think that stabbing somebody in the chest isn't going to do anything? What do you think was going to happen when you stabbed them in the chest? And see, I don't know whether it was a nice, harmless pen knife, pocket knife, or whether it was something else. So these other things are coming out, and what's going to happen is you will require patience. That is a great virtue. We can't operate on the basis of inquiring minds need to know, want to know right now. Facts will have to be developed. Nobody really has a clue as to what went on. We found in our discussion tonight that some things that are reported are actually just clown show stuff from trolls. But we need to find out what went on. And the other thing is, I will assure you, based on my long experience, very seldom does what comes out of a case from the witness stand match what you hear in the media.
All right.
With so so I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with a lot of things that you said.
Such as,
First, okay, first, I don't think gender in 2025 plays a role in whether a person is in fear of their
it
life or
does,
not.
though.
If no,
The
it doesn't,
average guy
because
that is educated
okay,
as a
but see,
man is
average
not
guy,
going to get
and
bent out of stuff like the average
I
woman.
disagree with you. If a person, I don't care if you're 12, if you're 8 feet tall and 400 pounds, if you're in fear, that is going to that's going to it, color your
Yeah, but the
actions.
point
If you're
is you are a brave man if you overcome your fear. All people, if
but
you're an
but
animal of any kind, human
and
included, you
I
commit
would
fear. The
submit to
point is
you, Judge
overcoming
Brown.
it and controlling it.
I would submit to you, Judge Brown, that Carmelo Anthony overcame his fear, because he could have let that boy hit him and possibly harm him with
Oh,
permanent
what?
damage.
Come on. You play football. Didn't you
Oh,
somebody just say he played football and ran track?
of course
If
he
he
played
played
football, but that
football,
does what
if he
so a
played
football
football,
wait, so
you can die playing
so
football. That's what gives
are
it
you
the
telling me that
traction.
Tom Brady are you telling me that Tom Brady is walking to his car and two very people bigger than him come up on him and threaten to hurt him, and if he's got a weapon in his pocket he's not going to
No,
use it
yeah, he's not.
because
He
he's Tom?
shouldn't unless he knows
Yeah.
they're armed.
Oh, okay. Well, let me say this, Judge Joe Brown. If I was Tom Brady and that happened to me, I absolutely
Well,
would use
you
the
might
weapon.
wind
Why?
up in
Because
prison.
no, hold on. Let
See,
me
but
finish,
you
Judge Brown.
might
I didn't say
wind up
I
in
now,
prison.
hold on, Judge Brown. First, when you're talking about the loss of property in a Tom Brady situation, and to some extent a Carmelo Anthony situation, if one of those people hurts him, Tom Brady's going to lose millions. And if Carmelo cannot continue, apparently these scholarships, these early admissions, are based on his athletic ability. So if those kids hurt him and do some permanent damage, they have
That
changed
has
the course
nothing to
of
do
his
with
life.
what the law is
Oh, it
going to
has
do.
everything to do
That
with it.
has no, it
It has
doesn't. You
everything.
get yourself put in the penitentiary just quicker with that because now you
Why?
establish intent to do
Because I stood
something
my
above and
ground, and
beyond.
that's the other thing. You know, the other thing, Judge
And
Brown, that
look,
you're
where
not.
you're going right now, I cannot condone because I still have all these oaths I took to uphold the law. And one of the most
Okay.
ridiculous and avoidable situations today is the fact that the typical American is beginning to believe that his emotions justify actions that otherwise are not justifiable. That is no excuse
Judge,
because you are expected as an adult human to control yourself, not to yield to your emotions. That is not the law. That gets people in a lot of
so
trouble, and I
again,
cannot condone that.
so if somebody is attacking me or appears to be attacking me, I should hold my emotion even though they're not.
Yeah.
and not defend myself and not put down a
In other
threat.
words, if
He put
I look,
down
I've
a
been taking
threat.
martial
You
arts.
weren't there. I
Stop,
was.
stop,
You
stop,
weren't there.
stop,
I
stop,
wasn't
stop.
there.
I've taken martial arts for 60 years. I've actually had to put them to use. The last time I did, I was in my 60s. And the person was a big drunk New Zealander who weighed 255. And I put him down and choked his ass out, and he was in a 5-star club in Aspen, Colorado. All right? Now, I am not talking off of the top of my head. If you want to be in charge of the situation, you stay cool, calm, and collected and in charge of your emotions. And the easiest way to lose is to get emotional. Young man, why did you
And
do it?
I
I
don't
was
think that.
emotional. That's no excuse. Explain
I
to the
don't think.
court why you
First
did
of
it.
all, Carmelo is not saying that. Carmelo is not saying that he was
But
emotional
you're
at all. As a
using that
matter of fact,
excuse, and I
I
cannot
no no no
allow
no.
that to
I'm
go
not using that.
unaddressed
No
because
no
that
no
is
no
no
no no no
defense.
no, Judge Brown. I'm not. You're interpreting what I'm saying that way, but I'm saying the exact
What is that?
opposite. I am say, I am saying that when Carmelo said, uh, "Put your hands on me and see what happens," that was a person in complete control of their emotions, trying to de-escalate the situation. When he said, "Hit me and find out what happens," the boy hit him, pushed him, and the boy found out what happens.
No,
That is a
no,
person
no,
that
that's
is.
not what you said.
Hey,
What you are saying
but that's
without realizing it is if you know what's going on from looking at it after it happened,
no.
Carmelo had a knife in his pocket. He
No,
said, if
I'm
you put
addressing
your
what
hands
you
on
said.
me or touch
I am
me
strictly
to
in the
see what
No, no,
happens,
Judge Brown.
I'm
I'm
going to
simply
stab
in
you,
the context
which
of what
meant
you
that
said.
irrespective of
No,
the
he didn't say I was going to
circumstances,
stab you.
he intended on provocation to use deadly force. You just made the case for the prosecution.
I've said this all day today that it was goading and prompting him to use force so he could use the knife as a pretext. That's what I said all day, and
But
That's
all
this
you
is
got
so.
was
right.
Let
pushback.
You're
me. Okay.
exactly
Let me.
right.
I'm sorry. 1 second, Lloyd. Let me just move everyone because there are too many people going around saying this was said, that was said. Nobody knows what the fuck was said because the people that were the witnesses have not officially made any statements to the police officers. And if they did, we are not privy to that right now.
Yeah,
So
but Dana, that's in the police
this
report.
is all
Okay, all
hearsay.
right.
The
Hold
only
on,
thing
hold
we
on.
know for sure, wait 1 second, just let me just say this. The only thing we know for sure is what Carmelo said to the cops. We don't know what the witnesses said. That's all fucking hearsay. So stop saying, well, he said if you grab this and grab that. We don't know who said what first.
Dana,
We
Okay,
it's in
don't
the
know what
police report.
transpired.
people.
We don't listen. We don't know when nobody isn't saying nobody didn't take his bag, but you can't say they did. That did not come out.
Okay,
The
people.
story did not come out.
Let's resolve this very easily. We do not know what the facts are, but this is an excellent opportunity to learn about your law here in the United States of America. There's a lot of mythology out there that has nothing to do with the law. But this is an important issue. You just brought it up, young man, when you said this becomes a pretext to put in motion something that's planned. Now, if the prosecution is thinking that way, you build a nice first degree murder case for the person. In other words, you're trying to goad somebody into, encourage somebody into doing something that gives you an excuse to use deadly force on them because when you tell them, run in your mouth, you do something to me and I'm going to wait and see what happens to you. You know you have the knife and you are trying to goad the person into doing something to you to give you the supposed justification of knifing them. That makes it a first degree murder case. Now, I'm not
Yep.
saying that's the fact, but hypothetically, if that happened, it does. So I'm using this as a teaching moment that that's not going to excuse your actions. That'll get you deeper into the penitentiary.
So Lloyd, you can wrap it up. You have the last one. I gotta
Yeah,
get to other callers. Good.
yeah. And so, another quick question. Um, what I'm hearing you say is that do not try and get out of something. Let them do it and then kill them. Okay, or else you're going to go to jail because trying to stop it is going to get
That's
you sent
not
to
what
jail.
I
And I have
said.
one.
That's
Okay,
not what I
one other
said.
question.
What I am inferring is it is a bad move that if somebody pushes you around, you go around telling people that you're going to get them, just wait and see, you're going to make them pay. And you have a knife, and the lady put it up, and jurors will ask her, what's he doing with a knife at school? Was it a pen knife where you got an inch and a half long blade on this thing? And when you unfold it, it's 5 inches from one tip, 5.5 from tip to hilt. What kind of knife? Why is he with this? So when he tells them, what he tells them is this trying to provoke them into giving him an excuse, a justification to kill him. And if you stab somebody in the chest with a knife, what do you think you're doing? You see,
Well,
and you open yourself
we're
up
going to
to
have to
all kinds of
respectfully.
negative cross examination. And if you do that, you make your defense lawyer work extra hard if he can do anything to come back on it. And if you don't take the stand, you already have all of these statements that somebody's going to testify to. Or when they authenticate the recordation, they'll play for the jury. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this young man got beat up. That's bad. That's not lawful. But he plotted and planned carefully so that he could goad these people or provide them with an excuse so he could kill them. He played football and he has run up against people that big on the line. And he's done it repeatedly. So when he says he's terrified of the physical harm that he's going to suffer because they're larger than him, then tell us why he played football and put himself in the exact same situation where with physical violence, but with no weapons, is going to be as extreme as either side can make it.
And
Explain that.
Judge, it's
And
crazy
he's going
because
to run into a mess.
it's strained credulity to suggest otherwise, and that's what I've been hearing all day. I understand people don't want it to be that way, but when you see where the prosecution is going with the first degree murder charge, it's not hard to put it together. This is not rocket science, and I'm glad you enumerated that because you have how many years of experience on the bench, Judge?
50, well, on the bench, I got elected to 8-year terms, and then I did 15 years binding contractual arbitration on TV. And I got a law school 55 years ago.
All
Right.
right,
So,
so one
yeah.
second. I need to get to B Boy, El Hotep, the Black, the ATM, and the Creditor. And that's really probably going to be the last group of speakers that we could have for tonight. And let me just throw this disclaimer out there because me and the judge, we do the shows on YouTube Mondays. It was Monday, Thursday. And people got to understand, and I'm glad you're here, Judge, to actually bring legal perspective and expertise and facts to this situation. But you heard the judge several times throughout this space say, yeah, you just made the case for the prosecutors. You just made the case for the prosecutors. And it's a pro and a con when you do have a professional like Judge Joe Brown, who's the judge, come up on spaces and give you facts about certain things because people from the prosecutor's office and even the defense, they listen in to experts on these social media spaces. Regular spaces where you guys have regular spaces and nobody's an expert, it doesn't matter. You could go and assume to the high heavens. But the moment you have a specialist on, defense and prosecutors listen, and well, not we, but he has had that done during he has had that done to where they have listened to the show on YouTube and applied it when it came to Fannie Willis and a couple other cases. So I think, Judge, maybe before we close out, throw something for the defense.
Yeah, I mean, the defense is the strongest case for the defense would be that he thought he was being subjected to a robbery. And what would happen if you push that, even if he's the one that did the killing, the robbery would make the homicide fall on the shoulders of the survivor
Hmm.
who went in there to help out with the robbery.
Give me 1 second.
Let me give you this.
Wait
But
1 second,
again,
Judge. Wait,
remember,
Judge. 1 second. Earth,
yeah,
are you a troll?
Yes, he is.
No, I have a direct question for the judge.
well, go ahead. Let's see what it is.
Well, that technically no, because he can't jump in front of other speakers.
Well, I didn't know what order he's in.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
don't
paying
come up here
attention.
being a troll. Don't.
Well, and one other
So, because
thing,
if
you
you
have to
are, you
understand.
need to drop down now. I don't have time. I don't have time tonight.
Please do if you're a troll.
I
But
think he
understand
might
one
be.
other thing
It
about
might
this
be.
whole process. Each side gets to closely question the jury to develop anything about the prospective juror that would indicate that he or she should not be on the case.
All right. I want to.
And
Oh,
some lawyers are good at it,
And
and
Judge, I
they
think
get
there's something today too, right?
challenges so they can get you off of the jury. So a lot of things that people are saying right now, they will tell you when they are being questioned by prosecution or defense, and they will strike you from the jury. And if there are certain things you say, they don't even have to use their designated limited number of challenges. They can get unlimited numbers if there is a viable cause. If a person says, I think so and so, well, Your Honor, we approach, we challenge for cause. This person's indicated they won't or can't follow the law.
all right. I
And
need
Judge,
I need to get to these. Wait 1 second, Peter. I need to get to these other speakers. I need to get to B boy because he's been waiting. El Hotep, the black, the ATM, the creditor, and then I'll see.
Hi,
And then I'm gonna see how the time is. Go ahead, B boy.
hi, peace, Dana. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can.
I hear you.
Okay, great. Hey, first of all, I want to just say peace to everybody in the room, and I definitely want to say congratulations, Dana. I've been following you since 5 years ago with Star, and I want to say also, it's a pleasure to be in the same space as a national treasure, which is the Honorable Judge Joe Brown.
Thank you.
I took some notes. Absolutely, I took some notes because I don't want to. I want to conserve your time. One of them was someone touched on it about the Miranda right, the Miranda if Carmelo Anthony was Mirandized. I think a competent lawyer will definitely try to make a motion to suppress if he wasn't in fact not Mirandized. However, there's a catch-22 because he did, as far as I know, ask the police officers if what's his name? I'm sorry, Capliff.
McCaff, Austin McCaff.
Yeah, he asked if he was okay. So it's sort of a catch-22 in that situation because if they make a motion to suppress anything he said because he was not Mirandized, then they can't use that to show his compassion for the victim that is now deceased. And rest in peace to him. So that was one thing. The other, I have a one more. I have a little a statement, and then I have a question for the judge. The statement is I didn't realize the height and weight difference. And Judge Joe Brown talked about how he's done martial arts. I don't know if you follow UFC or not. I've done martial arts, Wing Chun, Wushu. I follow UFC, and just to put it in perspective, you know, Anthony would be 130. He would be in a featherweight, and he would be against somebody like John Jones. It would be like John Jones versus Ronda Rousey. So I just want to say that I don't need any comeback from that, but
What's your
that's
question?
perspective. Okay, the question is, I wanted to know about it. I don't know if this has been brought up, but this goes back to Trayvon Martin as far as I'm concerned. And I wanted to ask the judge if precedent is nationwide, because if it is, and I keep hearing the judge, and I love you, judge, but I keep hearing you say, well, you should have just took your ass whooping. You didn't have to pull out a knife. However, as far as I know, as the Trayvon Martin situation, this guy's following him, and they get into a scuffle, and Trayvon Martin starts getting the better of the scuffle and putting hands and feet on him, and he pulls out a gun, and I'm like, okay, what? In that time, he was in fear that he was in fear for his life. He pulled
So
out a
what's your
gun. Did he
question,
overreact?
boy? You gotta get to the question because we're running low on time. So the question
Okay,
I,
is,
no, no, no. Okay. Well, the question was for that is, does legal precedent go nationwide or does it go state to state? And the last thing,
it's state only unless it's a federal charge. But addressing Trayvon Martin, let's put it this way: part of the problem with the Trayvon situation was some stupid tactics. Anderson Cooper talked to the family, the one from CNN, and persuaded the mother to keep something secret. What was that he wanted to be kept secret? One, that Trayvon's ambition was to be a police detective like his father and grandfather. His grandfather was a lieutenant detective with Miami at the time that Trayvon died, and his father was a sergeant detective, and his dad was visiting a girlfriend who was a patrol woman from
uh,
Miami.
uh,
Now,
you mean Zimmerman or Trayvon?
Trayvon. Now, Anderson Cooper talked the family into not bringing that out because it ruined his story from CNN's aspect. I won't mention the lawyer's name, but one of the lawyers representing the family was ignorant of the fact that it was Trayvon that had to stand your ground right, not Zimmerman. He thought Zimmerman did. This same lawyer representing the family was ignorant of the fact that it had no castle doctrine applicable because it did not occur inside any structure. It was out on the streets. So, what was happening with the approach was bad. The prosecution was very much concerned with getting reelected. They had had massive problems in that area between first generational descendant Cubano immigrants and black folk and all kinds of gang initiation problems and hell going on. So it was not a good environment at that time in that area. So the prosecution wasn't the sharpest thing in the world either. And the attorney advising the family was not on his job either. Now, I won't mention his name, but that person has become very prominent on the national scene about being able
well,
to
can I
resolve
mention his
these
name?
matters. You can,
Ben
but let me
Crump
finish.
ass.
Right.
Yes. Now, uh, so a lot of what's going to happen with this case is going to depend on who's representing who. Now, I will say this: for the most part, when you consider most lawyers who are involved, most of the time a defendant would be much better off getting represented by the public defender's office, not private counsel. There are
Exactly.
exceptionally
I,
good there are a few exceptionally good private lawyers. But I will just give you one case. The one of the assistant public defenders in my courtroom for a 10-year period had 64 jury trials in front of me. They were all serious felonies. He had 61 not guilty verdicts, one mistrial, which was a first degree murder case, and that resulted in one of the not guilty verdicts. And on the remaining two, there were guilty verdicts, but the jury found his client guilty of the included misdemeanor counts, 1129 maximum, and they had already served the time, and what they had offered his clients in terms of a guilty plea was 10 years. So he had 64 victories, and that was the best record in the whole state, and people wouldn't want him because he was the public defender. They'd rather hire some bozo that had never tried a damn case
okay.
that advertised.
Judge, can I jump in right there? Because and Dana, I'll land after right after this, if you allow
Go
me.
ahead.
Okay, I really appreciate you saying that because I had a public defender. I was charged with a sexual harassment case, and my public defender, he was his, I won't say his name, but he went to bat for me, and I didn't want him. My parents told me to keep him, and he not only got me completely off because I was completely innocent, but yes, but and then I want to just say why I brought the Trayvon Martin case up, and I'm going to attach it to another thing and I'm going to drop back down. Is because there's this, it seems to be this double standard, is why I was bringing that up. And it doesn't only apply to this type of situation where there's a physical assault, but I've listened to you and Dana talk about the R. Kelly and the Mann Act and all these things, and that's the same double standard that I see going on here. And at that, I'll drop down and listen. Thank you so much, Dana and Judge.
Yeah, you have to deal with the environment, the landscape, etc. The terrain as you find it, and it depends on who you have as your lawyer in terms of how the outcome comes. I would feel optimistic if I were representing this guy. I'd have, you know,
All right.
I doubt seriously that if I represented him, he would be found guilty of first degree
All
murder.
right. I got to get to old.
But
I
I
have to
don't
get to
know
El
who's going to
Hotep. I
represent him.
got to get to El Hotep, and I have to get to the black. Just stay muted, Peter. You could just talk afterwards because I'm going to get through these speakers. Go ahead, El Hotep.
Yeah, hey, what's up, Dana? Hey, what's up, Judge? Appreciate the time. Um, I just had one quick question, and I just kind of wanted to get the judge's opinion on this. From everything that is being said and all of that, what consists of a threat, or what is considered a threat? Because it seems like, and excuse my language as I go further, it seems like there was a statement made that led to this, and the reason why I bring that up is because if there's uh wordage or verbiage that is used, like if you, let's use for example, I'm leaning on the judge's car and he sees me leaning on his car and he says, hey man, get off my car or I'm gonna fuck you up, and a physical altercation then pursues and one of us gets hurt. um does that I know that's not going to give justification for one of us stabbing the other, but does that give the defense uh a way to use that to get this young man off? Because it seems like that's where they might go if that was what was said. Because from what it sounds like, he did say, "Hey, if you touch me, man, you're gonna find out." So I'm thinking that was probably what was said, or there was something along that lines that was said. Um, and then we have to kind of look at it like this: if that was what was said, is that considered a threat? Because a lot of times people make that statement and they get in trouble for being what is called making a terroristic threat.
Well, it's
So
not
I
a
kind of want to,
terroristic threat, it's a threat that can be used against you. But here's the thing, that's why we want a jury of the defendant's peers, because you need somebody back in the jury room who can translate what's been testified to. What did he mean when he said that? Well, no, he doesn't mean he's going to go do that. What are you saying? He's woofing. He's selling wolf tickets, or he's just blustering out there and he's talking shit. That's what he's doing. Somebody needs to break down what happens in the jury room when they deliberate. And a lot's going to depend upon the nature of the jury. Now, juries are not all the same, even from the same exact area. I'd say, in my experience, out of every five juries, three of them are pretty good. They're okay. Not jurors, but juries. They're pretty good. One of them acts like they lost their goddamn minds, and the other one acts like they're full of shit and got off the short bus.
Okay. All
So
right.
if you are
now.
lucky, you get one of the three out of five juries, and then the other two, you get what you get. Now, let me give you one other statistic. For the last 50 years, the stats have been pretty much the same. Just a little more than 2% of the people who are in the penitentiaries got found guilty by a jury. 97 plus percent pled guilty, and 84 to 87% confessed. So just remember, we're talking about 2 to 3% here in terms of what happens if you go to a jury.
Now let's say he gets off on that, but they try to bring him up on charges of having a weapon at school. Now I kind of would disagree with that, and here's why. Because and I'm going to get your opinion on this real quick, because Kyle Rittenhouse got that firearm off of a straw man purchase. And I would think they would, and I know they're not, but I would hope the legal system would have the same energy they had for that case in that straw man purchase that Kyle Rittenhouse had them firearms in this same scenario. Let me just get your opinion on that, because that was kind of suspicious in
Okay,
that whole scenario. So I just wanted to get your opinion on that because I did look into some stuff regarding him having this knife on school grounds and stuff like that.
okay. Now, what the general rule is, but that isn't universal across the country, is even if you have a device illegally, that does not remove your right to use it if you have the right to use it otherwise. In other words, you may have an illegal weapon, but if you had just cause to use deadly force, the fact that your weapon was not illegal does not remove your defense. You get what I'm saying? And then I mentioned it twice already. There's this thing called prosecutorial discretion. The prosecutor can, if he or she chooses, bring charges and present the case before a grand jury. A grand jury can do it on its own, or they can leave it and not touch it. And that's the end of it.
All right.
Now,
I need to go
does
to the
that make
black.
Appreciate
sense
it,
in
Judge.
answering your
Appreciate it, Dana.
question?
Appreciate you guys. Yeah, appreciate it.
All right. The black. And then.
And one other thing, double jeopardy. If they try
Oh, he's not.
him on murder and he winds up getting acquitted, or he gets convicted of a lesser included offense like manslaughter, they've already put him in jeopardy by presenting the facts when it comes to him having an illegal weapon, presuming it was illegal. So they can't go back in and retry that. That would be double jeopardy.
All right. Go ahead. The black.
What's going on, Dana? Judge, Peter, everybody else in the room.
Hey.
Uh, I have two questions. Do you think it's we have a new, somewhat a new law? Is Texas Penal Code 1905, and it's so similar to manslaughter, but it's negligent homicide, and it's let me go to it. It involves if a murder occurs, but the negligence must be more than a mistake, or it constitutes a realization of a risk that an ordinary person would have realized to avoid. Do you think it'll be possible to get that
What the
type of
usual
charge?
rule is that the judge must charge the jury with all lesser and included offenses. In other words, you start with first degree murder, you go to second, you go to voluntary manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter, criminally negligent homicide, reckless homicide, depending upon what the state has. There are various versions of these things. First degree murder, second, the murder in the third degree, fourth degree murder, depending upon what the state calls it. All right.
Yeah.
And the general rule is you have to give the jury the option of considering lesser included offenses unless the facts of a case are so peculiar that they exclude the necessity. The prosecution might stubbornly insist on not charging lesser included, but oftentimes, for a number of reasons, the jury won't hang their hat on the more serious charges. I've seen that happen. It's called jury nullification. You got a guy that has been burglarized by the same crew 6 times. He's working 2 jobs to pay for it. He comes home after his second of the 3 jobs. It's 5 a.m. in the morning. His toilet is literally gone. There's a hole in the bathroom floor. The sinks are gone. He runs out the back, and the people who perpetrated the burglary are laughing as they are driving off with his stuff on a flatbed truck. Well, he runs into them 2 days later and kills one of them. It's a clear first degree murder because he went looking for them, but jury nullification came back, no, we're not going to have that. I had one homicide that the papers and the news media were all freaked out about. They're packing the courtroom, and the jury came back with a question on deliberation. Your Honor, if we feel that the victim deserved killing, do we have to convict him of murder, the defendant of murder? Ladies and gentlemen, please consider the written instructions that are in your trial jacket and retire and continue your deliberations toward the end of delivering a verdict as truth and justice dictate. Thank you very much. Mr. Williams, please escort the jurors back to the jury room. It's jury nullification. Juries can do anything. Oh, didn't you find, ladies and gentlemen, that there was reasonable? Oh, yeah, we thought there was plenty of reasonable doubt, but we figured that the smart lawyers kept us from hearing about it, and the police wouldn't have arrested him if he hadn't done the crime. Oh, wow. That's one of those dumbass juries.
All right.
You see, so there's no telling what you get.
Okay.
You want to say something else?
Yeah, yeah. My second question is okay. If does it depend on the size of the knife? If it was like a regular small pocket knife, like utility knife,
It
would
depends on the totality of the circumstances. You ever seen John Wick?
yeah, yeah.
It's real. You can do what he does. He said, he killed two people with a pencil. A pencil.
All
You can
right.
do that if you know what
But
you're
wouldn't that
doing.
wouldn't that include like knowing that that person has some type of expertise or some type of military background?
Well, if you ask him and he tells you, but remember, you have a right to remain silent.
All
You cannot compel somebody to testify. And if they, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if the defendant does not testify, you cannot hold that against him. He has no obligation to contribute to his defense.
right.
The burden rests
All
exclusively
right. I need to
upon
get to the
them.
next speaker,
Okay.
Creditor and Earth, and we got 7 people in queue, and I'm gonna figure that out in a minute. So go ahead, Creditor.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Dana, thank you for your patience. Judge Joe Brown, it's an honor, sir. Peter, always a pleasure. Judge Joe Brown, I want you to take your lawyer and your judge hat off for a moment. Let's talk. I respect my elders, and I want you to speak to us as an elder. We're not going to beat around the bush. We have 2 young men, one in the grave and one that possibly have ruined his life forever. Moving forward, speak to us. Where do we go from here? We have adults killing each other in the streets, and we're not talking about race. It's white, it's black, it's everything. Now we have children stabbing each other, sir. Speak to us. I love your common sense approach. Speak to us as an elder.
Okay, what I'm going to say to you is you have to start raising these children right again. You can't raise these boys like they're girls. They have to be raised like boys. We kill better than anything on the planet, and that includes killing each other. We have made eons worth of history by making history through the warriors, those who kill real well. We look up to them as heroes if they killed in the right fashion for the right purpose for the right cause. Okay, so that's us. So the way to handle that is to acculturate and socialize the boys as they're growing up so they become men of public peace, dignity, and order. You can go to my site, Judge Joe Brown TV, and the first post up there, the first thing, that's what it says in there, and that basically covers the whole thing. So just go there. You can do it while you're on right now. Just at Judge Joe Brown TV. You can click on the writing under my picture here as we're talking now, and then when you get to the last screen, click on the picture, and you'll go there and you can read it, and that'll give you the explanation of what the solution is. I think that's probably the most expeditious way to do it because I'm certain Dana is getting impatient now. We need to raise boys to be men so they deal with their responsibilities of duty, honor, obligation, accountability, and they make where they live better, safer, more secure places filled with economic prosperity, sense of purpose, morality, and ethics. They can be brave and courageous when necessary, but otherwise men of public peace, dignity, and order. And we are not raising our boy children that way. Now, we protect them from having to deal with bullies. We tell them, as some have advocated tonight, it's okay to yield to your emotions. That's to be expected. It's not. So we have to teach them self control. Go watch Star Wars and they'll teach you that. But anyway, with those things said, I think that provides the clue to get the answer.
Anything else, Predator?
No, well said, sir. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Dana.
Um,
Thank you, sir.
I'm gonna go to Earth and then Peter. I know you probably wanted to say some things, and then we'll figure out it's 9 people requesting, so I'll probably just bring up one person one by one. So go ahead, Earth.
Earth and Hotep has his hand up, and Lamar as well. So just if you don't see it.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I'll.
thanks, Dana. Judge Joe Brown, simple question. Based on what you see right now, the evidence presented, in your gut feeling, what is the best case verdict and the worst case verdict for Carmelo Anthony?
I don't know. Right now, I'm not sure what the evidence is. I've heard more tonight than I got all day since Dana asked me to look into it. As I said, in my experience, very seldom does what gets published in the media match what comes from the witness stand in a trial. Very seldom. So let's see what develops. Patience is a great virtue.
And basically, don't believe everything that you see in print.
Yeah.
Anything else, Earth?
No, that's all right. Thanks.
All right, El Hotep, and then I'm gonna bring up each person one by one, and you get to like ask a question. Like it has to be quick because it's getting late. Go ahead, El Hotep.
And then we got Lamar
And
too.
I
Lamar.
just
Oh,
wanted to
Lamar
go
has
off of
hand
what
up too. All
uh, oh no, I
right, come on.
just wanted to go off of what the judge was saying. Conflict resolution. I said that on Sunday, and I said it again. If we implemented stuff like that at home, these two boys would be at home. One would not be at the morgue, and one would not be behind bars. Conflict resolution is a very important thing we got to start using and utilizing, not just as adults, but as kids. So
Mm-hmm.
I agree with what the judge was saying, and I just think conflict resolution is something that we need to practice more of.
All right, Lamar.
I amen on what you just said.
Yeah.
We need to get in charge of our emotions and start working stuff out. Save war is the ultimate step.
Lamar.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks so much, Dana. Just really quick, Judge Brown. We in a lot of the discussions I've been a part of, as Peter has as well. We've tried to stay away from the hypotheticals, the conjecture, the assumptions. But you mentioned something earlier where you've received some information back channels. I'm not saying that it's been verified, but my question to you is, if those things are true, how do you think that impacts the trial moving forward?
Depends on who the prosecution is and what their or his or her capabilities are, and who the defense is, and what his or her capabilities are about, and also the jury and the judge. You see, this is a human element situation. It could go any way, and I don't know enough about the case to speak with any kind
Well,
of
nobody
assurance.
does.
Yeah, and I usually, unless it's like Rittenhouse, where from the front end I said there's no way they can convict this guy properly because under the circumstances with a riot going on, all bets are off. So that was from the front end. It's like, hey, it's just like with Bill Cosby. I said from the front end before they even started the trial, I said there's no way they can get a conviction that will be sustained on this because the previous district attorney indicated to Dr. Cosby that there would be no prosecution. The civil judge then ordered him to respond to interrogatories and a deposition. So when he did this, the new DA can't come in and undo what the first one did and said, now we're going to use it to prosecute him. That's dead on arrival. And sure enough, that's what happened.
All right.
It just took several years.
I see B-boy, B-boy, you the last one. Then I have to go to the people that's requesting. And please make it quick.
Absolutely, I'll make it quick. And then I wanted to tell you, Dana, thanks for putting the spotlight on Chicago, which I'm calling from, with the Chicago rate and everything that you do. That's number one.
Thanks.
Number two, is for thank you, Dana, and for the judge. I just wanted to ask you, uh, is it possible for this young man to take a plea, or would you think it's better in his better interest to go forward with the whole trial?
I
And
don't
I
know
also want,
whether it's in his best interest or not. I know a lot of times people make mistakes by copying out. Sometimes they make mistakes by not. There's a thing called Alford versus North Carolina. It stands for the principle that even if you're not guilty, if you think it's in your best interest to do so, you may do that. If you think doing so is,
Mm-hmm.
if
so
you do
He
so
take he
freely
better
and
take it to trial.
voluntarily, understandingly, knowingly, advisedly, intelligently, and the state otherwise has a reasonable factual basis upon which to proceed outside of your plea of guilty. By the way, that's what James Earl Ray did with Martin Luther
All
King.
right, please don't go into that story, but we
I
get it.
won't, but
wait,
it's
one more
pertinent.
thing.
Now,
Wait, no, before I
Judge,
can't.
it
one,
might be in
okay,
his
I
I'm
best
have to
sorry.
get to the
interest.
other speakers. We got five people right now,
Let
and
me,
we're
okay, I
running
got it.
down.
I got it. I got it. But here,
No, Judge,
see, it depends on the circumstances. If he gets a plea for voluntary manslaughter, criminally negligent homicide, or something like that, in a lot of states, it's a minimal sentence. And in a lot of states, there is a presumption that if he doesn't have a prior criminal record, he would be fit for probation or in some states judicial diversion, so when he completes the probationary period he won't have a record.
all right,
So it depends.
all right. I'm about to bring one person up at a time, and y'all got 30 seconds. And King, don't come up in here with no bullshit tonight. Stop. Please don't. So go ahead, 30
Hey, can I
seconds.
just say, as a Texan, that's the best recommendation he should
Okay,
take.
fine. Go
Cause
ahead,
going
King.
not going to trial
Nah,
is
I mean,
crazy.
but listen, man. This is the territory, right? This is the Oklahoma, Texas territory, right? We know what this shit is, right? Born, raised in it. You feel me? Like,
No, I
Dana,
don't
I
feel you. I know
could.
I already dropped him down. I told you I don't got time. It's late. Go ahead, Dolo.
He's laughing too.
By the way,
Did Dolo drop
45
down? Wait,
years
come.
ago, by the way, 45 years ago, I tried a case in front of an all white jury down in Arkansas. I protested, wound up going in front of the state Supreme Court. All white Supreme Court set the verdict aside, and we got a new trial.
All right,
See,
Dolo.
so stuff happens depending upon who the lawyer is.
Dolo. No. Okay. Let's see next. Uh, Sam. Probably a troll, but I don't know. Sam.
Oh, you can hear me?
I hear you.
So real quick, I see how the case is going. I like to take a step back and then kind of reflect on both perspectives. So in certain communities, I see there's a serious push that it's self-defense and the child should be acquitted, and I agree with that. He's a child, and I could see the argument for self-defense. But when I watch the news on the other perspective, they paint this same child as a monster, right? And it seems the public, the majority public sentiment is that he's gonna get the criminal charge. And sometimes I worry in these cases, it's like if he gets the criminal charge, hypothetically, of course, what kind of backlash would it cause? I feel like there might be some sort of public outrage and things like that that may not be warranted. So I was just wondering what your opinion on that is. Thank you for the time, by the way.
Okay, well, it depends on the circumstances.
Right, with the
The
circum.
self defense thing, there was right to self defense, but the question becomes, was there an inappropriate escalation of force?
Oh, one more thing. I'm so sorry, Judge. One more thing. Earlier, you had mentioned how he said, touch me and you'll find out, as if that was some sort of provocative. provocatory language as if he knew what he was gonna do. But then what language wouldn't be provocatory? Like if I say, yo, please don't touch me, even though I know what I'm gonna do, like that would still count under that precedent, wouldn't it?
No, it wouldn't, because you
Wow.
didn't tell anybody that you had that intention. Just, hey man, don't touch me. You can even say, hey man, I'm gonna kick your ass if you hit me. I wouldn't do it. It ain't worth it.
Right, but if I know I got a knife, right, and I like the argument you made was the way he said, if you touch me, I'm gonna have to respond. That was like as if he was provoking
Yeah,
them to
well,
being touched
he
so he could
still
stab them.
he still isn't on thin ice there. From what I'm getting, assuming for arguendo, this is the fact of the matter. He's been telling people he was going to get them
Oh, okay.
earlier.
I wasn't aware of that. Okay, I was just
Now,
speaking on
if
what you
that
were
is
saying
the
earlier.
fact,
Yeah,
that
that
And I
serial
changes
would
it.
say that's
detail
just
didn't.
hearsay.
Well, yeah, I'm just
Right.
saying
At the end
hypothetically
of the day,
that
true.
that's just we're learning law here. That's all I'm doing. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm teaching about the law, which is something they
Yeah.
don't seem to do much these
Right.
days.
Okay.
Well, people don't understand the language, but I'll give you that time. I know you're at Thank you. Sorry.
Thanks, Sam. Kareem. Kareem. Yeah.
Yes, we hear you.
Here's my question. Both those guys were minors. My thing is, why didn't the white dude go get a coach or police or something like that and have them ask Carmelo to leave or whatnot if he was really in the area he wasn't supposed to be? Because it seems to me we're leaving out something very important. Maybe if the white dude hadn't said anything to him or whatever was going on, maybe that would have stopped this altogether. We keep focusing on what Carmelo did, but as far as we know, just on his face, it was a track meet, which means anywhere on that area he could have been unless it was an unauthorized restricted area. Why did another child try to tell a child what to do instead of going to get an adult?
Okay, let's
I
put it
kind of
this
like that perspective right there because that's again, this is an assumption. With what you
way.
just said, that scenario you just set up, right? For me, that would say to me something happened. It had to be some type of altercation, whether it was verbally or whether he did take his bag and he went to the tent and got it. What you just laid out, that's a good question. Why did, if he came to the tent harassing you guys or being somewhere he shouldn't have been, why didn't you go get an adult or a coach to say, hey, please remove him because he here and he should not be here? Maybe he came there for a reason, and the reason was to obtain his backpack. It's all an assumption. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, let me just interject this real quick. He is the people involved were minors, but they were not children under the law. They're minors, but not children.
Right. But the
There is a difference in law in terms of how an infant is treated, a toddler is treated, a child is treated, a juvenile is treated, a minor is treated, and they're not necessarily all the same thing when it comes to the circumstances of two given individuals who are not yet in their majority. All right. Now, be that as it may, there are a lot of fights that occur, have occurred, and you might refresh your recollection by looking at the old Back to the Future franchise with McFly.
we heard that. Please don't repeat
I'm
that
not
story.
going to. Don't. I'm not going there. But you might want to look at those movies and see how they washed out, worked out, and that's general society. And there's been a devolution from there to now, where everybody's supposed to be protected, and everybody is supposed to do just what you said, sir. Go get an adult to deal with it. That's part of the problem because the children are not acculturated and socialized to deal with it themselves as they should have been.
And this is what I'm saying now, right? I agree with you. But the scenario that Kareem just set up, one of this is me speculating. Maybe one of the reasons why he did not go get an adult is because he could have instigated something with the boy, which caused the said boy, Carmelo, to come to that tent. So he's not going to go and run and get an adult to diffuse something that he possibly could have started.
Or in the contrapositive, Carmelo could have went over there to get his get back, like I said earlier, and then Austin went to go essentially G check him, and he's not going to ask an adult to
Get
come
back
help.
from what though? Get back from an altercation that he probably had with McCaff.
Correct. Yes. And so
Right.
what I'm saying is Austin then went over there to kind of go check him, right? And so he's not going to go tell an adult. He's going to feel his oats, and this is all
Well,
egos.
Austin is not going to go tell an adult because of the fact is that Austin probably caused the initial confrontation that caused Carmelo to come and get his quote unquote get back. So I'm not going to
Right.
go tell an adult because I'll be telling on my damn self.
Right, but what I'm saying, he's also going to go back and be like, "Get the fuck out of here!" Like when I played football back in 2002, I graduated high school. If another team somebody from another team came to sit on the bench by us, dudes would be like, "Yo, what the fuck are you doing
And
over
maybe
here?"
he wasn't coming in to sit. Maybe he was coming in to get his shit
I
that they
understand
took.
painting another hypothetical
I
scenario
know
because
with this, this is all this is all an assumption, but I'm just saying you're right. Like why would you go to another team's tent? Because they're gonna be like, why are you here? He probably wasn't going there to chill. He was probably going to get his shit, which Austin probably possibly have taken. Who knows? But that was a good scenario, Kareem. Let me get to another person. Okay. All right, go ahead, Miss D. Miss D, you gotta unmute. Miss D, you have to unmute. Going once, going
it says
twice.
the mic is open, Dana. I don't know. Maybe the UI is wrong.
The what?
The user interface. Maybe I don't. It's showing her mic was open.
I don't hear her.
Yeah, I don't either. Now
It's
it's closed.
showing mute on my end. So, all right, I will remove you. Drop down. You can come back up. Who was this?
You're bringing Michael up now, right?
No, it was D was before, and then I'm gonna bring up Michael. Another D. This D.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Dana. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here. So, this is actually my first time speaking in spaces. And this entire situation has intrigued me. I just want to stick with the facts, basically, what we do know, which is very little. We do know that Austin grabbed his backpack. We do know that Austin grabbed Carmelo. So we do know that he put his hands on him. We do know that he didn't mind his business. But is that still grounds for someone to stab someone else because you didn't mind your business?
Under the law, no, it is not. That's the problem.
So it's not, oh, you're saying it's not
That's
okay.
that's not kosher under the law.
He escalated too much. He wasn't supposed to escalate to that level, and judge is saying that potentially he thinks that he's going to be held accountable for that, and there might even be aspects of first degree murder, which is why they charge that if they could prove through digital forensic evidence or other witness testimony that something
So
happened before.
this is my question though, because Judge, you did say self defense at one point.
I said there would have been a self-defense situation if it had not escalated, perhaps a fist fight. That would have
No,
been.
when I spoke to you yesterday,
Yeah, I know,
and you
but
said that if the guy Austin was attempting to rob his
yeah,
personal belongings,
yeah. But the thing goes, if that was the case where there was a robbery and he hadn't said you got the right person, it would have been a situation where the survivor, the other guy, would have been charged with the homicide. It would have been a felony murder situation.
I mean, well, we do know that as of like a few hours ago, over 75 people came out with statements. So witnesses, over 75 people, and I'm assuming, just this is just my assumption, that within those 75 people, even if there is bias, there's probably going to be bias on both sides. You know what I mean? So, and this was included, not just students, but coaches were also interviewed. And also, I did find out earlier that a video will be released to the public eventually, that the whole entire altercation was caught on video.
Well,
And this was by Carmelo's, not attorney, but a speaker. His name was like Dominic or Alexander or something. He was a speaker for the Carmelo Anthony family.
see,
Was he a black guy?
Yes, I
He
believe
did a
so.
press. Was he a black guy with glasses or something? Dark skin did a press conference.
Yes, yes. I did
Yeah,
listen.
I don't. But see, he's not the family's lawyer.
No,
So
he's not.
yeah, and I wouldn't take anything because somebody sent me that video of him, and he was like, "This guy's talking a whole bunch about a lot about race or whatever," and that's the problem. Too many people are talking. Too many of the wrong people are talking, and the lawyer is the only one that's really speaking for Carmelo and the family. And I saw that video, and it's like, what is he doing? So.
I
Oh.
think his main focus was because I guess the Carmelo Anthony family was receiving a lot of threats or whatever. So he was trying to come out to make sure that the Frisco police were on top of the threats that Carmelo Anthony's family was getting. So he was just making sure, and he did say to the public that the Frisco Police Department was on top of that, and he wanted to also debunk a lot of the fake stuff going on the internet that's causing such a racial divide, which is crazy. You know what I mean? Because a lot of this is going back and forth with, let's take race out of it and let's just stick to what the facts are, and let's pretend that, let's forget what color these both of these kids are, and let's just stick to what the facts are. I mean, we don't know, which are very little. We don't know much at all right now.
here's
Right,
something.
exactly.
Here's something that is my personal experience on the street. The person that you have to worry about doing the extreme violence is the guy that's scaredest.
All right.
In
I'm
other
gonna get to
words,
Michael.
in other words, here's the problem with this whole thing that I think is underlying it when you get neutral about it. Boys confront each other. They have combats, non-lethal combats all the time. Fist fights, shoving matches, the whole 9 yards. It is not often that something like this, butt beaten or otherwise, escalates into a stab to somebody's chest because the fight continues. And see, that's how the prosecution is going to present it. The fight would have just continued and nobody would have done anything except got maybe a bloody lip or a black eye. And
Right,
that
like you
would have
don't
been
bring
it.
a knife to a fist fight is what.
Yeah. Why did you have the knife on your person? And yeah, there is the possibility of a legal pen knife, small pocket knife. But what kind of knife? See, we don't know these pertinent details. And that's what
Right.
And
the
and can
jury
you have a
job is.
knife on a school premise? So is that legal in Texas? So now you got to go to the state laws in Texas, because that's the first thing I said. Well, why are you bringing a knife to your track meet? Why you have a knife? Period. Right? But maybe different states, different culture. Maybe it's legal for kids at a certain age, let's say 16 up, to have a knife in his possession with a certain inch blade or whatever. But you damn sure can't take a knife on no airport. So, but
Yeah, and the
but
other
Right.
people.
I'm personally a carrier and in Florida, and I can't take any I can't carry anything to any schools or any airports, any government buildings, a post office, nothing like that.
I
Right, so
get
that
you.
so I think that's right, and that's a great point, D, because then that's going to come and play, and it's probably the prosecutor's probably going to use that against the defense. He should not even have had the knife. You cannot have a knife on school premises,
Well,
Yeah,
if that's a policy.
yeah,
in
and
the
see that looks like somebody. If you've been telling people you're going to get these two, and then you show up with a knife, and then like one of our co-hosts said you goad somebody into doing this, that becomes a pretext for your committing a homicide. And that makes it first degree. In other words, if you try to make it look like self defense to cover up your intent to kill in the first place, then it's first degree.
Now,
Which
do we even have any idea of how long this was? Was it 10 seconds? Was it 30 seconds? Was it 5 minutes? Because a lot of that would come into play too. I mean, because I did hear that he was bullied, and that Carmelo was bullied and maybe he was jumped. I just don't understand how, if he was jumped or bullied or this fight was going on and he was even getting beaten, how did he reach into his book bag to grab the knife in the first place?
week before. There was allegedly an incident the week before, and he lost at this fight. And then this carried forward. He had a cooling off period and then decided to potentially persist in going after these two. And then what we're surmising or we're hypothesizing is that he made it look like it was a self-defense thing, but he might have already premeditated this and planned by saying these things to make it look like it was self-defense, when in reality he planned to go do and get his revenge the whole time, and then it would
Well,
Which
that's
would
become
be
not the
premeditated.
reality. We're still assuming. This
Right,
is,
that's
we
just
don't know.
assumptions.
Yeah,
We can only go off the facts, and the facts are so far is that
there
we
really isn't any.
right. We only know, and there's a lot of he said, she said,
Right.
but we haven't actually heard anything from an actual witness besides the
read the
brother.
police report. Read the police report.
I read the police report, and the police report said they have everything is on the body cam when they saw the alleged suspect, and they went and put the handcuffs on him, and he said what he said. That was all on the body cam, they were saying, and it was multiple police officers that wrote in that report because it was multiple officers involved, and they listed the name of witnesses, coaches, and students, but they did not have their statement. We don't
They
have
didn't
this.
have their statements yet,
Yeah,
right?
we don't
But
have statements from the witnesses, so people can't say, "Well, the witnesses said." The witnesses ain't say shit on the record because they didn't release. I don't. We
they
don't know if they've been interviewed yet.
So they said that 75 of those people have been, as of a few hours ago, 75 of those people have gave statements, but there are some other people that have not given them yet. So they're waiting on them. The only thing I seen on those police reports is that the worst thing I seen was that he was grabbed by Austin. And I don't see that being a grounds on stabbing someone. I just
Mm-hmm.
would, you know what I mean? I feel like that's going to be a
Yeah.
problem.
All right. I want. I don't know what happened with the judge. I want to go to um Michael. Oh, there go the judge. Go ahead, Michael, and then we're gonna have to
Um.
wrap it up. Judge, I sent you the link.
Yeah. Yeah. What's going on, Dana? Peter. Yeah. I had a question for the judge. What's going on, Judge? But I wanted to know how does he feel about the law changing on stand your ground? Because I side with I don't really think the boy was right for stabbing the white guy the other white kid, because it's like I'm sure all of us in this room been in a fight before. You know what I'm saying? When whether you on the winning side or losing side, if I'm winning a fight, that don't give somebody the justice to stab me because I'm winning a fight. Or if I'm losing a fight, that don't give me the right to stab somebody because I'm losing the fight. Like, and if that's the case, we all would either be dead or in, you get what I'm saying? We all will be dead or in jail on that simple fact. So like, what's the solution of changing that law? I believe it should be like knife on knife, gun on gun. You know what I'm saying? Or if it's just fists, like nobody has the right to stab somebody because they're losing the fight. Like I just want to know what he think about the law changing on that.
That is not going to become a law change because the law has been the same for a long time. You just can't use excessive force to respond to the threat. If somebody is just laying on hands, that's all you can do unless there's a disparate force situation. You can't just, okay, somebody hit me, so I'm going to kill them. You can't do that. There are people that think like that, but the law is specifically set up to discourage people from acting that out.
Quick question, Judge. With that, I gotta push back a little bit with that. not so much that I don't believe you or that that's not true. I have a problem with that because, like you said, it's true. Because take a woman. If a woman is being attacked by a man, and let's just say he's trying to rape her or whatever, and she's fighting him back, and she's fighting him back to where she takes something, stabs him with it, or hit him with it, and he ends up dying. That's self defense right there, wouldn't you say?
That's not self defense, that's resisting a felony. A rape, robbery, arson, those kind of things, kidnapping, those may be resisted straight up with deadly force.
And
because
that's
because
what
they
I'm saying.
respond
So
in
is
progress.
that is wait, so if someone is trying to rape me, like using so and they're beating me
Yeah,
up,
you can use deadly force to resist a rape.
okay, so if
Somebody's
there's
trying to
certain
commit arson, you can use deadly force.
okay,
If somebody's trying to commit a burglary, always, and this is the castle doctrine, is just a formal statement of what's been the law for 1,000 years. If somebody's committing a burglary, you can take their life. All you got to do is identify them and make sure you're not killing your own kid who's came home to surprise you early from school.
okay,
All
all right.
right.
I want to get to listen.
See,
I want to get to Chip, and I'm gonna get to Arinza, and then that's it. That's it for the night, and then I'm gonna Peter. I'll let you have last words, and of course the judge is gonna close it out. So go ahead, Chip, quickly, and then Arinza quickly.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Judge. I just wanted to ask, what's the argument here against premeditated murder? Because I've been listening, and there was an altercation beforehand. Then the boy brought a knife to school. That already, if he had a knife, that means he was already planning to use the knife. Like, so I don't understand what's the argument here against premeditated murder.
I've already indicated that there would be a strong case on the prosecutor's side that would merit the charge of first degree murder. There are also some things on the defense side that would merit, had the boy not opened his mouth and tried to claim self defense, that there was one of these felonies, to wit, a robbery that was going on that he was resisting. But he should have kept his mouth shut. And once you stab or shoot somebody or club somebody and they're laying there bleeding, ready to die, you keep your mouth shut for the most part. That's usually ill advised to try and explain that away, because you're not walking out of that without being in some cuffs and getting in the back of a squad car.
Mhm. All right, Arinza.
Lorenzo, you got
Arinza.
Unmute.
You hear me now? Hello? Okay, there we go. Hi guys, I'm Sorenza. I just wanted to thank you first off, Judge, for the comments that you made. I was watching the Black Authority last night, and they were talking about how the media was trying to put a slant on it to make it so that the prosecutors would have an edge over this young man who took the life of this guy Austin. My question is, does remember the situation with, I want to say his name is Kyle Rittenhouse?
Yes.
There was something there was his situation throws out the weapon. I mean, the prosecutors can't lean on so much the weapon charge, right? It was something that was said last night when I was watching
Carl
TV.
Rittenhouse, let me try to be very brief about this. That's not even the same thing. When there is a riot going on, there is almost a presumption that the people are going to do something against the law. If somebody starts trying to grab you doing a riot, you have almost a right to presume that somebody is going to try to lynch you. That's what mobs do. So you, right there from the get go, are now justified in using deadly force to resist this mob. So when Rittenhouse is there trying to protect property during a riot where arson is being committed, where there are break ins and total loss of social order and control, and they come up trying to grab him, several. He is very legitimate in being able to presume that his life is in jeopardy. And when there is a mob involved, the numbers become deadly, and he is entitled to immediately use deadly force. And he took the life of one and wounded another person who were in the process of grabbing him. That's under the peculiar circumstances of a mob and a riot situation. Now, this is not that. This happens all the time on playgrounds, athletic fields, and in and about schools with youth, where there is what is styled as a fist fight. Somebody's bigger than somebody else. That's the guy that's the strong guy. He's 100 pounds heavier than you and 6 inches taller. This is what happens in life when Goliath comes along.
Hmm. All
You
right.
got it.
Peter.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I'll be brief. So I just wanted to address what Dee said and Dana, what you said earlier. If you go to the police report, I actually put it in the nest and I highlighted it. It says Anthony was from Centennial High School and was sitting under the Memorial High School tent. Austin had told Anthony that he needed to move out from under the team's tent, and Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside, and proceeded to tell Austin, "Don't touch me," and I'm sorry, touch me and see what happens. No one really thought Anthony really had any weapons in his bag. And Austin proceeded to touch Anthony. And then Anthony told Austin to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Anthony to tell him to move. And Anthony pulled out what Blank recalled as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away. So this is in the official police report. So we actually have the statements as relayed by this particular witness whose name has been redacted, most likely because they're a minor and they want to keep the information tight to the vest until the grand jury
Oh,
actually
that was on a police report from one witness.
Yes.
And what read that again?
Okay, I'm going to read this, the most crucial part. So Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside and proceeded to tell Austin, quote, "Touch me and see
So
what
what happened
happens."
before that? Did he grab his bag back from Austin, which is why he went to the tent?
No, listen, here's what it says. Austin and the suspect, who was later identified as Carmelo Anthony, was from Centennial High School and was sitting under the Memorial High School tent. Austin had told Anthony that he needed to move out from under the team's tent, and Anthony grabbed his bag. So Anthony grabbed his own bag, opened it, and reached inside and proceeded to tell Austin, "Touch me and see what happens." This is now the witness saying no one really thought Anthony really had any weapons in his bag. And Austin proceeded to touch Anthony. And then Anthony told Austin, "Okay, basically, this is paraphrasing this. Okay, you touched me. Now punch me and see what happens."
Why are you paraphrasing it if you said you highlighted it?
Because I did, because I'm giving
Well,
context so people
read what's in there.
reading it. I'm reading it. It says punch him and punch me and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Anthony to tell him to move, and Anthony pulled out what redacted called a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away. And then it keeps
Peter, can I jump in real quick and say something to you?
Well, technically no, because I'm about to close out.
Okay, it was raining hard. That's why he was under the tent. That's all I wanted to say. It was raining hard, so that's why he was under the memorial tent. It's in the video clip from the Black Channel that's in the Jumbotron.
All right, so fine. And that's one witness account. And so again, we don't know the defense. We don't know what Carmelo's going to say. It could be witnesses defending Carmelo. This whole thing for me, and this is my final remarks, this whole thing for me is an unfortunate situation where a teenager has died. But I do appreciate this space, everyone that came up and spoke, and even everybody on YouTube in the chat. Some people was just going crazy in the chat a little bit with one particular person, and I really appreciate that this conversation was not focused on race. Because
It should be.
honestly,
Yeah.
the if it was a black boy that he did it to, will we still have this conversation? And we should have this conversation no matter what the background was, because we have two teens, one dead and one is going to go to prison. Period. Meaning one is dead, his life is literally over, and the other one life is figuratively over because he will end up in prison instead of going to college. So uh, this is not about, well, he fought against white supremacy. No, this is something way more serious than that. I'm sorry. So I really appreciate the fact that that wasn't the focus in this conversation tonight. And of course, Judge taking his time out to answer the questions. There were a lot of rhetorical questions. A lot. It's like an echo chamber, and everyone, y'all could go back to your spaces that you create and keep doing your echo chambers. But I really appreciate the judge just laying down different aspects of the law and educating and teaching people and answering the legal questions. He was not giving legal advice. He was just asking questions. Because again, we don't know all of the facts. We don't have all the evidence, and we are just regular people. So we got, we're talking about a guy right now that's going to be fighting for his freedom. And if people want to donate, that's their business, And I see a lot of these other content creators in media, not so much legacy, but just independent content creators in media, like a Jason Whitlock and a whole bunch of other people, black and white, calling him a murderer and saying, oh, that's disgusting. People are donating, and they're trying to create a narrative based around race. And honestly, this whole conversation should be based around what was it that I forgot which speaker said it, and then Judge, you agree, how to resolve resolution.
Yep.
That's the conversation that needs to be had, because this is going on in high schools and even grammar schools across this nation. Like, we have a problem when it comes to our adolescents and teenagers. We have a big problem. So to sit up here and talk about black culture, this has nothing to do with black culture, because there are white kids stabbing other white kids and shooting other white kids. So if you're gonna talk about black culture, talk about white culture, Asian culture, Mexican. So it has nothing to do with a particular race of culture. So I just want to acknowledge, I appreciate everyone that came up and kept to
Greg,
the actual case.
Judge, please.
Why you keep interrupting me, Peter, honey?
I'm
You
sorry.
so used to being on these goddamn spaces, honey, yapping. Like, you got the trigger finger. And I left the floor open. I was like, Peter, you was like one sentence and that was it.
Leave it.
Huh?
I'll leave it for the next time.
Oh,
Sorry.
I was talking to the judge. He must have been talking to the dog. Yeah, but
Yeah,
I'm
I
just like, now
was.
you got something to say, Peter. Cause what? Cause you done thought of something? What is it, Peter, before I go to the judge? Because the judge has to close out the show.
I
Well, the
wanted to ask.
space.
I didn't want to take up the space for everybody else. It was about voir dire, Judge. Our cases won and lost during voir dire. Would you say?
What? Who is
Yeah,
what?
they are to an extent, because if you know what you're doing, you lay out your case, you put it in front of the jury during voir dire, and you select during voir dire to get a jury that will be sensitive to what you're going to argue. All of your questions, everything you do during the trial leads up to your final argument. Your final argument should be directed and crafted to appeal to the sensibilities of the jury you have. And on the front end, you sensitize the jury to your case and you see if they'll go along with it. It's like selecting for a food cooking contest. Maybe you're talking about sushi and the person might be fine with steak, but sushi they can't handle, so there's no point in getting a sushi hater on a contest board that's going to have to sample sushi. So that's what you're doing with the voir dire.
And let me just
Now,
say this one last thing. I'm sorry, Judge. One last thing. I can't stand a person like Jason Whitlock and others like him to now it's about black culture. I can't, and honestly, and this is the distraction. And even if it's a white person and they bring it up black this or whatever, like stop with that bullshit. Like this is something way more serious. You got to look at what is going on with our youth, because honestly, these are the people, not so much you judge, but me. These are the people that's going to be quote unquote running society when I'm the judge age. So what are we producing here? What are we not educating? And what are the parents not doing? What is the school, the coaches and the teachers not doing? But y'all want to talk about black culture or a race thing or who's donating what for what? So yeah, so just keep that in mind when everybody go back to their X space echo chambers. But go ahead,
Let me
Judge.
say something as a caution, as a partial closeout. Some people said some things here tonight that they shouldn't have said, because if they ever do what they said they would do, then when you say something on social media, it doesn't go away, and that can be brought back up to show your intent. And though you might happily wish to say it was self defense or I was resisting something, because if they find that you have said you would, what did somebody say, cut his heart out or something, or something along that line, then that shows your predisposition to disregard the law and use something that otherwise would justify what you did as a pretext. Now, something alarmed me tonight, and I've seen it develop over the last 50 years of my career, and that is that the American public is losing track of what its law is really about and has expectations that something else is going on. Your emotions are not an excuse. Your feelings are not an excuse. Your fear is not an excuse. You are expected to control yourself. So this is a country that started off on a frontier where there are bear out there, grizzly bear out there, wolves out there, mountain lions out there that would kill you. There are Native Americans that would kill you for your trespass on the territory. There are weather conditions that are horrifying. There's thunder and lightning, for prairie fires, all kinds of things, and you did not survive if you lost your head. So you were expected to be cool, calm, collected, and under self control. This new stuff that they have had over the last 50 years, where they've tried to emasculate this country and get boys to grow up so they learn to cry and shout and let it all hang out and show their emotions. That is a poisonous thing to teach them. And I saw a lot of that tonight, and there were people who expressed that directly tonight. That's not how it works. So I don't know what the real facts are. What we heard is what we heard, and we got some developments during the course of this dialogue. But again, I caution everybody with this. Very seldom does what one hear through the media match what the evidence turns out to be during a trial. And if too much of this gets out, then they're going to have to change venue and move it somewhere where the jury is less partial to the circumstances than they are here. Race, that may have come up and entered somebody's mind, but that's no excuse under present circumstances. And the bottom line is that it is inappropriate generally under American law to escalate something beyond the stage it is on at that point. In other words, if it's just physical, you have no business bringing in a deadly weapon. A butt whipping is no excuse to kill somebody. I mean, you may want to do it, but you take your chances. And the penitentiaries are full of people who decided that they'd rather get the satisfaction of taking somebody's life. So it depends upon How long you want to be in prison? Likely is not. This boy may get off. He may get convicted of or get a bargain where he pleads out to a lesser and included offense. But somewhere along the line, somebody should have taught him that, hey, you got to not go there. That's the wrong place to go. If somebody's bigger than you, then figure out how to get them.
I don't know what happened.
You have to go after them in an acceptable fashion. You can't just go out and get revenge. This is not some myth on television where somebody that is in a clan or something else has a vendetta that drives.
Even if I hop in and say something.
Judge, you keep going in and out.
Boston.
Yeah. All right, I'm about to close out.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Dana, can I send Judge a DM or a email?
Well, you can send them a DM or X.
Hello,
Yeah.
hello,
I want, yeah, I
hi.
want to send Judge and you
I'm
an
still
email
here.
about. I just want to send Judge. I'm sorry, Dana. I just wanted to send you and the Judge. I have a subject that I would love for you guys to cover, and I just want permission to send you guys an email. Is that
Just
okay?
send it to the X message. But go ahead, Judge. Finish up.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
thank you,
In
Dana.
other words, just keep control of yourself. And see, this boy is going to run into a problem. He plays football. I suspect he is either a wide receiver, he's a safety, or a defensive back, or he's a running back. And there are people on the field that are going to be very big compared to him. So he's going to have a hard time convincing somebody or his lawyer, setting up a situation where a jury will be convinced that somebody's been running up against hard, well trained, armored, because you got on a
Can you tell her stop
where you
calling?
have on a helmet, shoulder pad. I don't know who this is. I guess it's spam. So um, you're going to have a hard time winning that when you're on a football field. I played it in high school and college at UCLA. It doesn't quite work that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, keep your cool. If you get your behind whipped, you know, figure out your comeback, but it doesn't include killing somebody. And when you say, I stabbed them in the chest for self defense, did you not have any clue as to what was going to happen if you put a knife in somebody's chest? And a black knife? What are we talking about? Are we talking about a pocket knife? And then the other thing, too, is if you stab somebody in the chest, you've got the sternum and everything up there. It takes a bit of doing to get through all of that rib cage and get into some of the vitals up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what exactly did this victim get stabbed with? I don't know, but it would make a difference. And it also shows premeditation. In other words, you anticipated a physical combat that you were going to escalate irrespective of whether you had one person, two persons, three, or however many, and you anticipated killing somebody. And see, it isn't like you stayed there and fought it out.
Wait, yeah, I just thought of something
You
because
stabbed somebody in the chest and ran.
well
You
let
could
me
have
let me
done
say
that
this.
on the front end.
I just thought of something real quick and then we're closing out. And let me mute everyone because I want to get off their damn mic. Um so remember that knife I had from that place, that sponsor place, and I got the Let's Go branded knife from that.
Yeah, you did.
And so I would carry it when I went hiking. And I think you even suggested it too or something.
Yeah.
So what if somebody jumped out and I was scared and I was sleeping on the phone with you first going, now I'm a pro out hiking. But anyway, but what if somebody had jumped out the bushes or not even jump out the bushes, like walked up behind me and grabbed me or something? And say if I had took my knife and swung around and stabbed them because I felt like I was being attacked. What I went to could I be what go to
Well,
prison for
if
that?
you were surprised and you didn't know who it was, you might get away with that to an extent. But
So
it's
what is
like
the
this.
purpose of me even having a knife for protection?
Well, there are a number of reasons, including keeping yourself fit. See, if you have a knife and you're out in the woods with a little bit of knowledge, you can survive damn near anything until somebody comes to get you.
No,
But now,
I'm not. Yeah, that is different. I ain't talking about killing animals to eat or
nah,
to
yeah, but
protect
I'm talking
myself,
about
but
cut
I'm
brush,
talking about a
firewood, stuff
human
like that.
being.
Now, listen, listen. Let me put the real picture to you. See, there is something that's not being spoken in this group. And what it is needs to be addressed. There is a distinct difference between men and women. Let's say that you were on this hiking trail and a guy jumped out of the bushes at you. Right then, you are going to be strongly possessed of a legitimate fear that great bodily harm, serious injury, or death, etc., is going to follow. Let's suppose, on the other hand, it wasn't a guy, it was another woman. Now, she jumps out. Is she scared because you just happen to be the first human she's seen in hours and she's lost? And you just immediately stab her? What if she had no evil intent? She was just frightened. Help, help, I don't know where I am. Can you help me to get back to civilization? It is totally different when it occasionally occurs where the victim of the killing is a woman and the perpetrator alleged is a woman.
I'm talking about whether it's a woman or a man jumping
Yeah,
out the
it
wait,
depends.
whether you jump out the bushes or whether you coming up behind me in an attack form.
Yeah, I know, but see, that's the point. That's why, even so, somebody has committed a burglary and broken into your home, from your perspective, it's always best to identify the suspect, because it might be your son or daughter or your nephew or something like that who is a little drunk
So
and
okay,
is
so
trying to
here's
surprise
another
you.
angle of a question. When should someone use a knife? Or so it's just it's so
You can
Ohio
let
has
me
open
explain.
carry, and I'm assuming that could possibly go for a knife or
Explanation would go this way. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if the defendant in this case was confronted by circumstances and aggression where he or she was assaulted and put in a position where they had a reasonable belief that they were in jeopardy of suffering death or serious bodily injury, they have a right to defend themselves, even to the extent of using deadly force and taking the aggressor's life.
now can that be applied to Carmelo Anthony?
That's the problem. What was the person doing that would cause Anthony to believe that he was in danger of suffering death or serious bodily injury?
And that's what the defense is going to have to.
And that's where they went wrong.
Mhm.
If he had kept his mouth shut, the guy could have said, technically, the victim was committing a robbery. But now I find that maybe that might not wash, because I thought the victim was going in the bag of the defendant. But now it was the defendant going in his bag, and that kind of indicates premeditation. I'm not going to wait to see whether it is serious bodily injury or death I'm facing. I'm going to pull out a deadly weapon. Now,
Now that's
of
just from
course,
one witness, and
yeah,
apparently they have
okay,
like. Wait,
okay,
let me just
okay.
say
Hold
this.
on,
Wait,
hold
wait,
on,
let
hold
me.
on, hold on, hold on, hold on before I forget the point. It's a quick one. Remember, there's been a previous confrontation and nobody suffered serious bodily injury or death. So, what is it that the defendant would say caused him to form the belief that suddenly that fist fight thing where you get busted lip, black
Yeah,
eye,
well,
or
we don't
bruises
know if
is
it. But see, that's the thing. what Peter read was one witness talking about the moment that Carmelo pulled out the knife. We don't know prior to him being in the tent if they had an altercation or if it was any threats. So, and then two, they have dozens other witnesses, and
That's
those.
not the
Let me
point.
finish. Let me finish what I'm saying. That was
Okay.
one witness that Peter talked about that was in the report. Now they have dozen other witnesses. Now the other witnesses may have a different story for what they have seen, or may have more details what happened prior to the tent. So to your point, Judge, there is not enough evidence. They have not spoken to all of the witnesses.
But that's not my point. That's not the point at all. And this is the important point that I'm trying to develop very quickly. It's this: what out of the circumstances would lead the defendant to perceive that he needed deadly force to resist an anticipated assault? Did he have one before with these people? Well, he survived. There was no serious bodily injury or death. What was it that caused him to change that belief to one where I am going to be in danger of suffering death or serious bodily injury today?
Mhm.
Now, if he or his lawyer or crew cannot develop an answer for that, they might have a serious problem with resisting the state's charge of a homicide.
And just really quickly,
Not
Dana,
justifiable.
and the deadly force would be okay or acceptable with the knife. Why carry it if you can't use it? My teacher always says is if it's 2-on-1 and the two are getting or potentially about to get the best of you, that becomes a deadly force scenario. And this is an individual that has 26 years with Hoboken Police, and he used to lead the SWAT team in Essex County. So a deadly force situation is induced when it's a 2-on-1 scenario, and you could potentially be looking at you losing your life as you're fighting one opponent, the other one's cracking you in the back of the head and potentially stomping you out once you're unconscious.
Well, yeah, that would lie
Yeah, and
maybe with.
honestly, I'm
Wait a
really,
minute.
I'm not
Hold
trying to
on.
go back down that rabbit hole, and
Hold
that's
on.
why I'm
Hold
just
on.
like, this is
It's
really
an
the conclusion. So can we
Dana,
just
very
not?
important point, very quickly replied to it. That might have been okay if they were complete strangers to go there, but they weren't. There had been a prior confrontation. There had been no impromptu use of some object that by its intended or attempted use could be deadly. So, what would cause the belief that that was going to change and circumstances were going to escalate? See,
Yeah,
these
I
are
don't
the
want nobody
questions
throwing
that are left
anything
there.
at Judge. The questions that you said, that you laid out, those questions. That's how I wanted to end the space.
Yeah,
I don't need
but this
nobody. Don't
this one
bring.
was
I
run.
don't Peter. Nobody else. Don't bring nothing into it, because I need the space to be ended on his last word, not to conclude to what you were saying. So repeat the last thing you said.
Okay,
What is
let
the?
me be very brief. A fist fight between people known to each other, especially when there has been an antecedent fight.
That's not. No, that wasn't it.
No, hold on. This is the important point to take out of this. Does not justify the anticipation of nor the infliction of deadly force. Getting an ass whipping is not an excuse to take somebody's life. You may choose to do so, but you act at your peril if you do.
That wasn't it. I want you to repeat the question that is at hand for this, that I said, that's, and you was like, that's basically what the defense is going to have to prove. And this is what I'm saying, like, I just need for people to just shut the hell up, because it's
Oh, I get what you're saying. Okay. Self defense is an affirmative defense. Ordinarily, the defendant has absolutely no burden of proof that rests on his shoulders unless he makes an affirmative defense. And to make the affirmative defense, he has to show that under the circumstances, he had a reasonable belief that he was in jeopardy of suffering death or serious bodily injury. Now, the problem with this is these people allegedly have had prior contact with each other. So, between getting your butt beat situation and needing to take somebody or being justified in taking somebody's life, you have to show some reasonable basis for that belief. And the problem is, it's going to look like, from the assertions that I have gotten, and I'm using them as a teaching moment, it looks like somebody predetermined that he was going to do some serious injury to the people that were responsible for, I guess, embarrassing him or whipping him at an earlier point. So it looks like he set up a situation, or he anticipated a situation where he would be looking for a justification to use deadly force. So, as has been pointed out, this situation looks like a pretext to use deadly force and get revenge for somebody doing me the embarrassment of whipping me.
All right. Yeah, but that was your. You know what? You already said it. I have it on fucking YouTube, so it is what it is. All right, that's it. Good night.